580 Sports Talk coming to you on a game day Thursday. That is right. 5 hours from right now, the Ichabods take on the Gorillas down at Yager Stadium South. Excited for that one. 7 o'clock kickoff. We've got Missouri. I know you don't care about that, but still Missouri. Nebraska plays today. Like, I am so excited for tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm also, now that I just said that, makes me so angry that I don't care about Nebraska and Missouri. I know you hate Missouri with every fiber of your being, Brennan, and I understand that.
I do hate Missouri.
I am excited because I'll get to talk. Colorado, welcome back, old friend. Excited about that. Like, I miss Nebraska. I miss Missouri. Like, I should be jacked that those two teams are playing non-conference games today, but I don't care. Like, I don't. I care that Washburn hopefully will stomp Pittsburgh State, and Emporia State will lose. And is Cole Reagan's pitching tonight?
No.
Then I don't care about the
Royals. Don't play.
Yeah, they don't.
Nobody is pitching.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably go watch Cole Reagan's just throw BP just because, man, he's been that good. But we got a lot to get to.
I have bad news about Emporia State. If you're rooting for them to lose tonight, play Lincoln.
I know. I know.
Let's go Blue Tigers.
I know.
How many games are they going to end up playing this year?
In the
Lincoln, are they going to play a full schedule?
I don't know if only two MIAA teams found opponents to play Lincoln at that time. Pitt State is one of them. They will face Sioux Falls coming up, and then I forget the other one, but
not Washburn and not Emporia State.
Correct. Washburn did their best.
Yeah.
Davenport. Cheap Davenport couldn't pony up an extra night of guaranteed money. Otherwise, the Ichabods would have been traveling to Grand Rapids.
Davenport, more like a futon.
Yeah.
Like a Murphy bed.
Ha! Roast their ass. That's all I got for Davenport.
Yep. So we got a lot
I have for Davenport.
We got a lot to get to on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Jake LeBon, Brendan Dworzynski, Dan Lucero with you on this Thursday. Game Day Thursday, NFL. A week from today, we are going to have Chiefs versus Lions. We will talk plenty today. We're going to preview the Raiders. Bill Williamson of SB Nation will be joining the show. We also got Rick Peterson stopping on by. Should be a lot of fun with Pistol. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Paul Myerberg on all things Big 12 football. K-State in action. We'll get to some K-State stuff. I will be out of here in, like 20 minutes because it takes 3 hours to get to Pittsburgh.
It does.
It's a long drive down on Highway 69.
Not the nicest drive down Highway 69. It's not especially scenic.
I get to stop at Fort Scott. Well, I got to stop. We're going to drive right through.
I was going to say, you're going to go to Chicken Annie's or Chicken Mary's tonight?
We'll not have time to stop at Chicken Annie's or Chicken Mary's. I've ate at both of them, but not close enough together to tell you if there's any difference.
What about the Pittsburgh Brahms? Will you have a chance to go there?
Perhaps, and we may get the bag of burgers, Dan.
Try not to get pulled over on the way is all I will ask you.
Oh, yeah. That was like 6 years ago.
And people don't forget.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah.
Got stopped.
In the old HHR. In a pull in the AutoZone parking lot or whatever, Advance Auto Parts, whatever.
I'd forgotten that happened.
Yeah, that definitely happened.
Yeah, I remember the next day we had work, walking into someone's office and they were in a very bad cursing mood.
Salty.
I seem to remember this.
Yeah, that's they definitely got me. They got me.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Chris Jones, did you guys know? You haven't seen the updates? Yeah, he's still nowhere to be found. So my question for you today, how many snaps will he play on Thursday? A week from today. How many?
0.
I am now starting to think he does not play week 1.
Okay, no, does not play week 1. Okay. If he does play, what would the max number be? You can give me percentage of quarter.
15 to 20 defensive snaps, something in that neighborhood.
I would say 25%.
Okay.
He'd play third downs.
Okay. My question for you now with Chris Jones, we're a week away. It has not worked out. It has gone horribly wrong for both sides of it. No one thought it would get to this point. I'm assuming that the Chiefs, and I don't think Chris Jones was thinking, wow, they really now hold a lot of the cards here because they can withhold my pay for the first 3 weeks, even if I, show up, but they don't deem me, using a soccer term here, fit. That's $3 million that he's out, plus already the $1 million that he's lost. So that's $4 million he's out. He's out. So my question though is expectations with Chris Jones versus expectations without Chris Jones. How does this affect what we should think the season should go as? Is it still, let's say Chris Jones does not show up, then we don't know when. That's why this makes it difficult to me. Let's say he shows up, but he doesn't play the first 3 weeks. Is it still number 1 seed? Is it still, try to play an AFC title game? Is it still Super Bowl?
It can be.
If he doesn't show up until week 8, do you need to adjust the expectations that, hey, the 1 seed probably won't happen? How many games is Chris Jones worth for the Chiefs as we look at this season? Because I'm with you. I don't think he plays Thursday. Do I think they can beat the Lions without Chris Jones? I do, but I wonder, how much that line could move. Maybe that line has stayed because he hasn't reported to practice. I do think the Lions' offense is pretty good. I do think that this is a team that can scare you because they've got some talent.
Maybe this is a controversial view of the situation. I don't if you're talking about likelihood of winning any of the 17 games, the percentage probably drops. Like if you say, okay, week 1, the Chiefs have a 70% chance to beat the Lions. Without Chris Jones, 60 to 65%, somewhere in there, like less likely, but more than half the time the Chiefs are winning that game. Like, I don't know if I can say, well, I had the Chiefs with 13 wins before, but no Chris Jones. I might knock that down to 11. The Chiefs should still be favored in every single game they play this year, and probably will be with or without Chris Jones. It just makes it slightly less likely. And I know I'm getting really into mathy stuff here, but I'm talking about multiplying percentages and whatever. But like realistically, if the offense does what the offense does, and I have no reason to believe it won't, and if you get like competence from your defense, even maybe not greatness like Jones brings, but you get competence and Karlaftis progresses in a linear way, the way you would hope that he would. The young cornerbacks progress in the way you would hope they would. Same with Cook in the secondary. The linebackers do their thing. That's the best unit on the defense right now without Chris Jones. If they do their thing pretty much, I still think the Chiefs are favored by like 3+ points in every game this year.
Well, okay, they're favored right now by 6.5 over the Lions.
So it has gone down 0.5 point.
They're at 6.5. I just looked.
Like, I saw it at 6.5 before, like last weekend.
Maybe it's a book-to-book thing. Okay,
it could be.
Or I might just be really behind. I'll tell you right now. This time when we have this conversation next Thursday, we preview the game. I have no problem taking the Chiefs. Chris Jones or not, like I'm taking the Chiefs to cover that 6.5 spread.
I would agree that in a micro sense, game to game, having one player out of your 53 does not
named Patrick Mahomes,
right? Does not dramatically swing the odds that you win or you don't. Yes, particularly because the player that's still first on the team sheet is the best player in the league. Mahomes and Reed, your baseline is so high, it broadens your margin for error to the extent where you don't miss the other guys nearly as much on an individual basis. But let's remember that the Chiefs only earned the bye last year because somebody almost died on the field in a game that might have decided the bye for somebody else. Like, let's remember that they did not get the bye the year before that when they advanced ultimately to the conference championship game. They did not have the bye the first year of the 7-team playoff field. Let's remember other years where it came down to, like the first Super Bowl year, getting the number 2 seed came down to the last week and needing Ryan Fitzpatrick to bail them out in that Dolphins Patriots game, the famous Kevin Harlan, I'm calling both games.
Yeah, they got the 1 seed because of that.
It was a 2.
2 seed.
Yeah, that was just
double
a bye
buys at the time. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Double buys.
So,
Oh yeah, because the Ravens then lost.
the Ravens ended up getting housed by the Titans, right?
Yeah.
So the margin for error for the season is already not real big. And for a macro look at things, I think you say that losing Chris Jones, maybe that cost you a game. Maybe that cost you 2 games because Chris Jones made so many game-sealing or game-altering plays late in games for the Chiefs, especially last year, that maybe they trick one off they shouldn't against the Chargers. And you finish 13-4 and not 14-3, and then you're in a tiebreaker, and maybe you don't win that tiebreaker and you don't get that 1 seed. And with only 1 bye, like, obviously it's not fatal if you don't get it. Like the 2 teams that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago didn't have the week 1 bye, the first round bye. Last year, both teams did have the week 1 playoff bye. So you can get there without having the bye, but it's a big help, especially when you're the only team. So it's a bigger deal, I think, to try and get that 1 seed if you're the Chiefs. And I can't argue that their chances aren't worse of doing that without Chris Jones.
I think it is game to game. I think it really comes down to just a few plays in the close ones. You know, the games against the Eagles and against the Bills and the Bengals. I mean, 3 plays determine those games, unless you just get absolutely housed. 3 plays determine that. I mean, if you look back at the game against the Bengals in the title game, there are about 3 plays that separate you when it comes to that game. And that's where I look at, if you're Brett Veach and you are Andy Reid, because this is not just a Brett Veach thing. This is an Andy Reid thing as well. Because if Andy Reid wanted Chris Jones there, he would tell Brett Veach, hey, dude, I don't care what it takes, make it happen, right? We're all in agreement on that, right? Like, if Reid wanted Jones there and he wanted the money there, do you think he's there? Or do you think this is strictly a Veach deal?
I don't know.
It might just be a Jones deal. Like, it might be that the Chiefs have made a perfectly reasonable offer.
No, but I'm saying I agree. We all know that the Chiefs have given what they think is a reasonable offer, and they're not moving it. We know that from the Chiefs, obviously. I'm talking about, let's say the Chiefs have offered 29, but Jones still won't move off 30, which means it's really stupid how you're holding out for just a singular $1 million and $100 million contract. That's just me personally. But does Andy Reid tell Brett Veach, give him an extra $2 million? I don't give a damn.
I mean,
that's what we never know about this team. Because I still think Reid has final say.
I would imagine that's. I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know where to begin with that, because, you know, the public messaging is always that, you know, well, that's a Brett thing, that's a Veach thing, but we know Andy Reid has a major say in it. Every time anything is reported about the Chiefs from national writers, they always talk about how Andy Reid made this decision or that decision. Everyone knows that.
Yep.
But I guess I don't know the depth of it, so I don't know. It's an interesting point, but also Andy Reid knows that Chris Jones helps the team win.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Like, I think they can win the first 3 games without Chris Jones.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, again, I think, and Dan did a good way of explaining this, I do think, you know, on a week-to-week basis, the Chiefs should, quote unquote, still win every game.
Well, I don't know. I think without Chris Jones against Buffalo or the Eagles or the Bengals, I think that does have that big of an effect on the outcome. I really do think that. Because do the Chiefs beat the Bengals without Chris Jones in the AFC title game last year? I don't think so. I truly don't think so.
No, not that game.
I don't think so.
I don't think they beat the Chargers without him. The game where he makes the
at the end of the play, he was a monster that game. Like, so that's where but the Chiefs have nothing, like, they can't make Chris Jones show up, you know. And the first 3 weeks of the season, okay, you can probably get by with that. It just comes down to, at the end of the year, if they lose out on a 1 seed or a 2 seed because of one game in which Chris Jones didn't play, I know that guys don't like to, they will never talk about somebody else's money on the record. Patrick Mahomes, I love Chris Jones, to get its contract, he ain't ever gonna, deep down inside, right now, if that is what occurs, that's going to be the first thing that a lot of these guys think of. It will be, because that's where Andy Reid is at to this point now. It's like, hey, let's go play. It's game time.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. Either you, Chris Jones, overplayed your hand, or the Chiefs, you overplayed your hand, and now it has turned into a disaster for both sides. It really has. Disaster for me is the fact that he's not going to play week 1. That's a disaster. And anything after that, it's still a disaster, because and the more game, like if he misses 3 games to 8 games, that's all the same, because one of those games could have been the difference. And if you're Chris Jones, this will be very enlightening to see the amount of fines that he has and how much guaranteed money he'll have next year versus the amount of money that he's lost. And did this actually work out? Like, is this a pride thing for Chris Jones right now? Like, wow, I had, I had a straight and the Chiefs had a flush and I ended up losing. Like, they got me.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Le'Veon Bell did the whole holdout thing and ended up costing him like $20 million in overall money that he could have gotten.
Well, okay. Well, to that point, though, it also depends what is Chris Jones as a player going. Part of the reason Le'Veon Bell ended up losing so much money is Le'Veon Bell came back and he wasn't a good player.
He was not
anymore.
Good. Correct.
Yeah. Like if Chris Jones plays half this year and then gets the bag next year and he's still this Chris Jones, he wins. Like that I think all right. All this to make the general point, I don't think we can know which side is going to quote unquote win here until probably 2 or 3 years from now, which I know is the worst sports talk radio answer possible because we want an opinion and a take right now.
Well,
but
I think you'll know who wins if we just knew the number that the Chiefs, let's say a deal doesn't get done,
mm-hmm.
right? The number that the Chiefs offered Chris Jones will get out somehow. So we'll find out.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
Yeah,
just like we found out the Orlando Brown deal. We knew what the Chiefs offered Orlando Brown. He said no.
This is the point, though, where I think the Chiefs are, and where I would imagine the 53-man roster is, where Andy Reid is, where the coaching staff is. So there are 52 other guys who are under contract, and whether they're happy with that contract or not, whether they're paid adequately relative to their talent level and their position, they're there.
Yeah.
They went through camp. They went through preseason. They're ready to play the Lions on Thursday night. Patrick Mahomes is underpaid relative to the rest of his peers at that position. And as long as he's not the top paid quarterback in the league, he will be underpaid. He's either the highest paid or he's underpaid. That's how that works for Patrick Mahomes. But you know what he is? There. Travis Kelce talked about, I do feel like I've probably given some money away in my career. Maybe I haven't been compensated the way I should have been. He told GQ, I think it was GQ. Was it GQ or was it Vanity Fair? Some fancy magazine. Yeah. So he told,
I don't get.
Yeah, exactly. Some fancy magazine where he got to wear some nice clothes. And he told them, maybe I've given back some money. But you know where Travis Kelce's been? Busted his hump at practice. He's been there. He's been there for his guys. Those are your 2 leaders. Those are your 2 future Hall of Famers. And Chris Jones, I know, has fancied himself on that tier of player and on that tier of leader for this team. And for him to not be there while under contract, I do think that at this point there is a feeling. Again, I'm not in the locker room, but I have to imagine that there is a notion in that locker room now that says, yo, Chris, it's time to play, man.
Yep.
You didn't get your money.
That's why I said they're not going to say it publicly.
Right.
But they're going to say,
it's time to go play.
Yeah.
We are in a Super Bowl window. We're the defending champions. We want to run it back. We want to do that, and we know our chances are better with you, and you are under contract. Get your butt in here and let's play.
I don't think he plays either. I don't think he doesn't play coming up a week from today. I think it's too close. There's only 2 practices before the game.
Yeah.
That's it. Coming up next, Blaine Gabbert. Is he good enough to be the backup? We got a lot more. Paul Myerberg will stop on by. Bill Williamson, Rick Peterson, Chiefs over-unders. And I'm on my way to Carney Smith Stadium, also known as, I hope Washburn wins so I can keep saying that, because once they lose, Then it goes back to Kearney Smith Stadium. Washburn has won 4 in a row, by the way, at Kearney Smith Stadium. I don't know if you guys.
We've heard that.
I don't know if you guys know
We've heard that. Yeah.
I'm hoping it's 5 in a row because then, guys, Pitt State fans out there, you thought I was insufferable now. Oh, buddy, it will be even worse. So I am off. Have a great Thursday, guys. Enjoy the football tonight.
Hey, safe
you
travels.
enjoy your football as well.
Go Bods.
Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk. Jake taking off. He's headed to Pittsburgh, Kearney Smith Stadium for Washburn football. So the two of us are with you until 6 o'clock today. No Royals baseball tonight, so we're out here right at 6. Jam-packed guest list coming up the rest of the show. We'll talk to Paul Myerberg here in just a few minutes before this week's Big 12 breakdown. Bill Williamson of SB Nation will join us to talk all about the Las Vegas Raiders coming up at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour as we continue our look around the AFC West. And the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around coming up in the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We'll talk to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. He is going to be out at an event today. High school sports are underway in the city.
Yeah.
Got some soccer going on this afternoon. So Pistol will join us live from there as we preview high school football beginning tomorrow. Our first Lewis Toyota High School football game of the week. Tomorrow night, it will be some UKC action, Seaman versus Topeka West. Looking forward to that coming up tomorrow. But before we get to all of that, a question about the quarterback situation, kind of some finality to this quarterback situation. Shane Buechele out. He's going to the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Chris Oladokun is the third stringer, the practice squad quarterback for this year. Blaine Gabbert's the backup. Patrick Mahomes is the best player on earth. Do you have the same kind of faith in Blaine Gabbert to win a game? A regular season game, postseason game, whatever. If you end up in a situation where Mahomes twists an ankle, gets a concussion, whatever, the things that have happened to him in the past, you have to go to Blaine Gabbert for a game or a half a game or whatever. Do you have the same kind of faith in him that you have had or retroactively maybe didn't have in a Matt Moore or a Chad Henne to get the job done?
Pretty similar kinds of player, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess if there's a difference between Moore and Henne and Gabbert, it's that Gabbert was expected to be more in his NFL career, and it never really happened for him as a first-round pick, whereas Matt Moore wasn't a first-round pick. Chad Henne wasn't a first-round pick. Those were guys who carved out solid NFL careers.
Henne was a second-rounder.
Yeah.
That's higher than I thought.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I would have guessed a third, maybe fourth.
Yeah.
Really good college career at Michigan, 4-year starter.
Yeah.
But Blaine Gabbert was drafted to be a franchise quarterback, and it never quite materialized. So I think that the first thing, fairly or unfairly, you think about when you think about Blaine Gabbert is that the fact that he failed to achieve the promise that was hoped for from him when he was drafted. But since then, he's gone about carving out I think, fairly respectable backup resume. You know, he didn't throw a lot of passes last 3 years backing up Tom Brady. But you know what he didn't do with any of those passes? Throw them to the other team. You can go check that. He hasn't thrown an interception in 3 years. That's not bad. There's a little mobility there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's size. There's a big arm. Like, you wouldn't want to play him for a whole season. Like, Blaine Gabbert having a quarterback, like, do the thought experiment. Patrick Mahomes retires and decides to play baseball. And Blaine Gabbert is your starting quarterback from week 1 on through week 18 of this season. Are the Chiefs still a playoff team with Gabbert? Is borderline. I would lean no.
Mm-hmm.
But does he have the physical tools and the understanding of the league to pull you out of the fire in a game if he has to come in relief, like we saw Chad Henne have to do on 2 separate occasions in the playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he does have that. I think he is capable of that in a way that I don't know that I would have ever trusted Shane Buechele, because we've just never seen it, where we've seen Blaine Gabbert score touchdowns in the NFL, throw touchdowns, make plays.
I mean, I don't see what, with the experience he had, he's been in the league a while. He feels like Blaine Gabbert is still pretty young, but for a NFL player, he's actually not. I mean, he was, the 2010 draft, right?
I think that's right.
2011. It was when Cam came out.
Yeah, it's the 2010. Was it?
That was 2011 because Cam's
2011
season was 2010 at Auburn.
Yeah.
Definitely the greatest single season of a quarterback in college football history.
And then the 2011 draft, maybe the greatest draft of all time. And Gabbert was the 3rd quarterback selected behind Cam Newton. And
it would have been Locker.
Yes.
It was Locker, Gabbert, Ponder. Those were your other first-round quarterbacks.
Correct.
One of the greatest drafts of all time, and the first one taken was an MVP. And if he hadn't gotten physically destroyed, maybe he ends up a Hall of Fame candidate someday. And then the next 3 quarterbacks were Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, and Christian Ponder.
Like, the only guys who aren't going to the only guys who didn't receive some kind of like Pro Bowl or All-Pro recognition in the first 11 picks of that draft were 2 of the 3 quarterbacks.
That's pretty wild. But no, I think when you consider that he is at least experienced and knows what to do, knows what it takes to be an NFL quarterback in an NFL game, because he has done it before. He has been in that role before. And when if you trust this offense, do you trust Andy Reid? Do you trust the playmakers around him? He's got a great offensive line. That helps. He's got an elite tight end. That helps. An effective running game. That helps. And then you've got good enough receivers who are going to end up making plays for you. Yeah, I see no reason why he can't do something similar to what these guys have done in the past. So while I'm not, tripping over myself to get excited about Blaine Gabbert, I think that there's no reason he could be that he should be any worse than mostly career backup Chad Henne or mostly career backup Matt Moore. We have to get to a timeout. We've got a lot of college football coming up on the other side of this break, though, as we'll be joined by Paul Myerberg of USA Today for this week's edition of the Big 12 Breakdown. That's up next on 580 Sports Talk.
And I told our players, you need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here. Unbelievable!
We're back!
The Big 12!
My name is Paul.
His name is Paul Myerberg. He covers all things college football for USA Today, and he joins us Thursdays at this time during the college football season for the Big 12 breakdown. College football finally here, week 0 in the books. We've got actual Power 5 football tonight and a full slate coming up over the next few days as well. Paul, how amped are you for this weekend to finally be here? I know week 0, fun appetizer, some surprisingly good games, but how excited are you that we are finally to the real meat of this season?
I'm offended by that question that you would say that Jacksonville State beating UTEP, UMass beating New Mexico State is not already knee deep into the season. That was an awesome way to get things started, but y'all are right. I mean, the buffet opens tonight at 7:00 and it doesn't close until December 4th is the Sunday they pick the playoff. So it's all you can eat, guys. It starts in about my time. It's almost 3:40. I'm going to go for a run. I'll get something to eat. I'll have something to drink, and then it's on.
Really quickly, I know it's old news now because it was this past Saturday. Tyson Pumachan, is he the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy this year? Because I don't think UMass has had an athlete like that in a long time.
Yeah, it's funny. So I wouldn't say that I know him, but I did go up there because I'm in New York City and he's from a prep school in upstate Connecticut. I happened to be in the area, so I went up there when he was committed to Clemson and thought, maybe I'll get to know the next Clemson great quarterback. Didn't turn out that way. But look, if the dude goes and averages 12 yards a throw and runs for 100 yards a game, he's got a shot at making some noise. But UMass, to me, every win for UMass is a Super Bowl moment. So I'm happy for them. Don Brown is a coaching lifer who has won big there before. So I don't think he's going to win big again. But obviously that was an upset in my mind.
Let's get to our two local teams here in Northeast Kansas, then we'll take a look around the rest of the Big 12 in the country, including some interesting games tonight. Let's start with KU. I know I asked you last week, Paul, a prediction for this season. How real is this team? How much of last year was a blip and how much was the real thing? They've got an FCS game against Missouri State coming up tomorrow night. In fact, the dumb Friday night game to start the season. But as you watch KU go into the start of this season, this offense should be, in my opinion, one of the best in the Big 12, if not all the Power 5 with all their firepower. The defense needs to be competent, and I think KU can win 7+ games this year. What are you hoping to see out of this team in terms of continuing their development and continuing to be a legitimate Big 12 team, not just a blip on the radar and a regular doormat?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And what you want to see from this team, because we do expect, and I think it's fair to expect, that this is a top third offense in the Big 12. And to me, if you're a top third offense in the Big 12, you might be a top 25 offense nationally. I don't think that's an unrealistic goal. Maybe it's a little bit unrealistic as an expectation, but they can get there. But what I want to see is the growth of a program. And very rarely, unless you're Nick Saban taking over in Alabama or you have that infrastructure in place, very rarely do you take, 2 steps at a time. It's 1 foot in front of the other. A lot of schools in this spot never take that first step. KU has taken that first step. And right now we're waiting for the defense to kind of take another step forward and join the offense to make this a more well-rounded team. The toughness factor, I don't mean to question toughness in terms of their strength as people, but just the toughness factor to stand up at the point of attack is going to get tested early, guys. I think Illinois is going to be a test. BYU is going to be a test. Clearly, Texas will be a test at the end of the month. This is the perfect warm-up game. Obviously, it's going to be a blowout. But what you want to see is not just the first-team offense put up 42 points in 2.5 quarters. You want to see them hold them to 10 points and under 4 yards per play. You can do that. You do that at the start. It doesn't really mean a lot because you got to get back into it in a week, but it's the start. And we need to see that tomorrow night. If we don't see that, and this is like 48-27, we're going to have a lot of questions. And I think it's going to cause a lot of people to recalibrate what they think about KU. As we know, guys, everyone's picking them to get into a bowl game again by the skin of their teeth. If they show that this defense has not improved, I think you'll see a lot of people dial those back and think of them more like a 4 or 5 win team.
Jalen Daniels last year was one of the breakout stars of the season, certainly up until he got injured against TCU. He was, a September Heisman kind of candidate, if you want to use that word, Paul, or that phrase, Paul. Where do you stack him up against the best quarterbacks in the country? And we'll get to another one of those and Will Howard here momentarily, I'm sure. But when you look at the best quarterbacks in the country, Caleb Williams is one of one. No one is touching Caleb Williams. Drake May is a stud as well. Michael Penix is an older guy, but he's a phenomenal quarterback at Washington. I think of those guys at the very top of the top. But where does Jalen Daniels rank for you? What kind of tier would he slide in at, given how good he was a season ago and then the preseason honors he's gotten this year?
Yeah, I think, and this is no disrespect, these are small groups. I think I'd probably put him in the third tier of QBs. And that's not to say that he can't play his way up in the tier, but yeah, this top tier to me is Caleb Williams, it's Sam Hartman, it's Drake May, maybe it's Quinn Ewers. For a lot of people who watch Jalen Daniels, it's the same questions that you have about KU at large. Is it repeatable? You want to see him stay healthy. Can he avoid turnovers like he did a season ago? Can he remain the guy who is the engine for everything Kansas does? I think the supporting pieces are good. They're better than they were, and they continue to get better. I think the supporting cast up front is better. If he can stay upright and they can protect him and they feel comfortable as a staff to continue to use him as a runner, this is the sky limit kind of guy. He's not going to win a Heisman, but he's not going to be an All-America guy. But clearly, this is an all-conference quarterback who makes KU go. So what the benefit is of last season for him and for KU's own success, it's put him on the map. So we're talking about him now, and he's got an opportunity. I think he'll go out and grab it. But again, show everyone that you can stay healthy and stay on the field. Can't afford for KU or for Daniels to miss 4 games or most of 5 games again.
Paul Myerberg, USA Today, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for our Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll do this every Thursday throughout the college football season with Paul, who does great work for USA Today. Paul, speaking of outstanding quarterbacks from the Sunflower State, Will Howard and the Kansas State Wildcats take on Southeast Missouri State on Saturday. You know, Chris Kleiman, with his FCS background, won't let his players overlook an FCS opponent, particularly a good one like SEMO. So what are you looking for from Kansas State to start their season? And Howard in particular, how close is he to that tier of quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think there's the lack of flash in comparison to Daniels is what makes Howard more of or less of a household name. But look, we all know the score here. The way that he played last season changed the trajectory of last year's team, and it changes the way that we look at this year's team. And the fact that they won the Big 12 while getting him set to be the full-time starter in 23 is just enormous for this program and for the development of this team and the program at large. So I think Will Howard has the opportunity and the ability, clearly, to play himself into that conversation. I don't want to sleep on the fact that adding 2 Giddens, Trayshawn Ward from Florida State, that the impact that is going to have on him as a passer. I know that seems kind of unconnected, but the fact is, Will Howard, in my mind's eye, before he took over last season, I always viewed him as a guy who had to be a runner to be successful. And he changed my mind and he opened my eyes. And I think if K-State can continue to pound the rock with a traditional running game and free Howard up to be in the pocket and deliver passes on time and on target, that's their key to success. I know SEMO's pretty good, but let's get real. They're going to stomp them. They should. And I think it's all systems go. I did my predictions for Kansas State in the Big 12 earlier today. Went down this schedule. I looked at every single possible permutation, and guys, I got to be honest, I came down 10-2, and I don't say that lightly. I think this is a 10-win team. I think they will be there with Texas at the end, and it really doesn't all belong to Howard, but it starts with Howard. His play is the key, and I believe, and I think a lot of people, obviously the fan base believes, and I think the coaching staff really believes in him as well.
Let's take a look at some other Big 12 games. Big 12 slate actually starts tonight with UCF and Kent State, the newest members, one of the 4 newest members of the league. The Knights hosting Kent State. And then there's a host of games on Saturday. And the one that will have the most eyeballs on it will not be because people are super keen on seeing what defending regular season champion TCU looks like without Max Duggan and company. No, that is the Coach Prime debut in Fort Worth, and that's what will draw the eyeballs. TCU is a heavy favorite in this game. What is your take on how they'll come out of the gate with so much offensive production to replace? And do you expect that they will have an easy time with Colorado, or as easy as our friends in the desert suggest?
Yeah, I think they are going to hit that 21 points, guys, and it's hard for me to imagine that they don't. All I've heard all summer long about Chandler Morris is that he's going to be unbelievably good. Not Heisman Trophy good, but unbelievably good. He spent last season learning this scheme. Like, that's what he did last year. He put his brain to work, and according to Sonny Dykes, he knows the offense as well as any quarterback he's ever had, and that's eye-opening, guys. Look, Colorado, Colorado's like, the commercials where, you ask 5 dentists and 4 of them say that you should brush your teeth. If you ask 5 people about Colorado, 4 of them say that Colorado's going to be the worst team in the country. Then you got a 5th guy who's like, well, they could be pretty good. Things go together and blah, blah, blah. I don't see it. It's an incredible experiment. I'm fascinated by it. I'm not really as fascinated by Dion. I mean, coaches come and go, but I'm fascinated by the experiment and how this thing plays out. My thought on it, only a few guys have opened their mouths. Narduzzi said something. Venables said something. My read on it from talking around the country is that there are a lot of coaches who have Colorado circled on their schedule because they want to put a hole in them. And I think TCU is going to be the first to do it. Colorado, until you prove that you can develop a line from scratch, like literally from scratch on both sides, until you show that you can block and you can get to the quarterback, you're still going to be a pushover. So they'll be flashy. They got a couple guys to watch. His son, obviously Travis Hunter. But look, I mean, TCU is not going to be 13-2, but they're miles and miles and miles ahead of Colorado. So I don't expect them to have a whole lot of trouble.
Which Big 12 team has the most intriguing opening game to you, or we might learn the most about over the course of their first 60 minutes of the season this weekend?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I'm looking at the schedule. Only one Big 12 team you're going to say is going to lose, and that's West Virginia. I mean, Penn State, I spent time there this summer. They've got something to prove. It would not surprise me in the least under the lights on the season opener if they put 50 points on West Virginia. And I'm serious. West Virginia is not very good. That could get ugly. The team that I'm most excited to see because the setting is Texas Tech. Wyoming is not a middle of the pack Mountain West team. I think they're one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the Mountain West. A solid league, not the Big 12, but pretty solid. It's the environment that they're going to play in. It's the elevation. It's the fact that it's at night, and it's the fact that Wyoming's had a whole month to get ready for them. I think Texas Tech is going to pull away eventually. Don't be surprised if this is a close one. I really mean it. Wyoming is a tough place to play, and I think Wyoming is going to be ready for them. So I'm watching Texas Tech because of the fact that it is not a toss-up, but it could be tougher than people expect. Next, I'd say Houston against UTSA. UTSA easily could win that game. But, of course, Houston is not a very good team.
We've got a few more questions for Paul Myerberg, who covers all things college football for USA Today. He joins us here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for the Big 12 breakdown. From a bigger picture perspective, what team in the Big 12 do you think, Paul, going into this year is maybe the dark horse candidate to contend for a conference championship? Everyone's got Texas atop the league. Oklahoma, I don't personally love their talent, and I don't know about Venables yet, but they've got a crazy easy schedule. They'll be in the mix, plus, it's OU. And then I think K-State's going to be in the mix again, and as you mentioned, you have them going 10-2. Is there a team from outside that trio who you could see, who you could hypothetically envision having everything break right, and then they're in the mix come December?
Yeah, I'll give 2, and I won't touch any of the new guys. So I do think UCF, as I said, and BYU should be pretty good. UCF better than BYU. Baylor and Oklahoma State are 2 really intriguing teams. Oklahoma State the latter because they're a reworked roster, and not a reworked roster in really a positive sense. There's a lot of holes there, or rather a lot of question marks about guys that we have not seen play, that Mike Gundy and his staff seem to believe in, and we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but they have a lot to prove. I still look at this team and look at how Gundy has consistently reinvented himself in the way that he goes about, coaching the team on Saturdays. And part of me feels like they're going to be a lot better than expected. So that would be one. The other one is Baylor. Baylor needs to get better QB play, and that's just it. They need better QB play. I trust in the fact that Aranda, at this point of his tenure, is going to get this defense, if not the best in the Big 12. I think they're going to be in the top 2 or 3. I actually like this unit. I don't think they're getting enough praise in terms of when people talk about the best defenses in the Big 12. So Baylor is QB play. Oklahoma State is just believing in Gundy. If you're looking for a 4th team to join that group, or maybe a 5th if we add TCU, I would bet on one of those 2 holdovers being the team that steps up and makes a run.
We have talked a bunch this offseason on this show about some of the bad coaching vibes for a few programs, including a couple of the newcomers. Like West Virginia's been around. Neil Brown, I have a hard time seeing him making it through this season. Things are fairly bleak in West Virginia. I don't know how into it Dana Holgerson is anymore, and I don't know how into Dana Holgerson that Houston is. But the Cincinnati hire this offseason, losing Luke Fickell to a Big Ten team, look, it happens. But to replace him with Scott Satterfield, who it felt like Louisville could not wait to get rid of, that one still boggles my mind. Can you make sense of that? And what did you think of that hire when it was made?
Yeah, that hire to me was like, I saw this movie recently, and I'm embarrassed to admit it. just the summer. I watched Speed 2. It's on a cruise ship. Keanu Reeves gets traded out to some dude, legitimately just a guy. Bill Parcells will call him a jag. And that is basically what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Satterfield, Fickle to Satterfield is Keanu Reeves to that guy, whoever that dude is. I didn't love the hire. It was very, very difficult to find anyone who did. I think the defense of that hire is Satterfield from the start sabotaged himself at Louisville by flirting with South Carolina. And things got ugly there, got ugly with the administration. It got ugly in recruiting. And he didn't really have the wherewithal or the pieces around him to make it work. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but that's kind of how it played out. Maybe a fresh start is good for him. Maybe getting back into a place that has like this own identity that he doesn't have to build or manufacture will be good for him. I don't think this team is that great, and I don't think that the pieces are there for them to be immediately successful. But yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the hire, and it was very, very hard for me to find someone who said praiseworthy things about what Cincinnati did.
Jason Patrick, by the way, Paul, that's your male lead in Speed 2 Cruise Control. He was in the Thin Red Line, but they cut all his scenes.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Jason Patrick. So head coach of Cincinnati from this point forward, guys, is Jason Patrick, and that's what we will call him.
Patrick with no K at the end, too.
Oh, even better.
Oh, my God.
Even more memorable.
Oh, God.
Perfect.
Oh, God.
Real quick, a couple more before we let you go, Paul. One team that's playing tonight, Arizona State. They're playing Southern Utah. One, you can get tickets for under $5 to go to that game today, which seems bad for a season opener. Two, does any program in the country right now, any Division I program in the country, feel like it is circling the drain more than Arizona State? Their president is bad at his job. Their athletic director might be the worst in the country. They're still digging out of the hole that Herm Edwards dumped them in. And they didn't even tell their head coach, hey, by the way, we're going to take a self-imposed bowl ban this year. Are they they might not be the worst team record-wise in the country, but is this the team that feels the worst right now?
Yeah, it feels like a program that has exhausted all of the goodwill and excitement that arrived with Kenny Dillingham's hire. Like, they hired a 32-year-old guy for the ability to sell the program as trendy and hot. Unfortunately, like you said, Ray Anderson is still there. He's a guy who does all the wrong things, it seems like, and really says all the wrong things. Like, I'll send my assistant AD to West Virginia, but I'll be the one who goes to here or Austin or whatever. I mean, talk about a stupid thing to say. Arizona State is always described as a sleeping giant for some reason, even though they are just asleep, period. I give Dillingham a lot of credit. I think he came home and took a chance on this job because they offered the opportunity at a young age. I hope it's not too much for him, because he is a guy that among even veteran coaches, there's a lot of respect for. So I want to give him time, and they will give him time. But yeah, Arizona State is in a bad place. And the bottom of the Pac-12 is bad. They might be the worst out of Stanford and Colorado in themselves.
I'm very happy about all the new teams coming to the Big 12. That one is probably the one that I think fairly enough brings the most baggage. Real quick, last one here, Paul. We got about 30 seconds. The big game of the night, Florida, Utah. Florida is starting Graham Mertz, which is a big shrug from me, but Utah doesn't have Cam Rising. Who you got tonight in Salt Lake City?
Yeah, I'm still going to pick Utah because of the setting, because of their toughness, and because of the advantage of the environment. Florida is going to take a step forward. I still like Utah to kind of gut it out. They lost at Florida last season. It cost them dearly. I think they realize what's at stake. So, yeah, I'm going with the Utes. But again, I think Florida can still get to 9 wins because you've seen Napier's teams take the second-year leap. It's just a tough setting right now to step in with the transfer QB who no one really thinks that highly of and to win at a team that's a top 15 team in the country. So I'm taking the Utes, but I think it'll be close.
Paul Myerberg covers college football for USA Today. He joins us at this time every week during the college football season for the Big 12 Breakdown. You go follow him on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Paul Myerberg. Paul, we appreciate the time, my friend. Thanks so much. Enjoy the games this weekend.
Okay, talk next week.
That is the best of the best when it comes to covering college football. Paul Myerberg from USA Today. We're going to talk plenty of Kansas City Chiefs, as we start off the 3 o'clock hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you for the rest of the show. For about 15 months, this is when we joined you every single day and would take you until 6 o'clock. Then Jake had to join up. Goof up the time. Just kidding. Jake's on his way, though, to Pittsburgh, Kansas, not Pennsylvania, for MIAA football kickoff tonight. Ichabods versus Gorillas rivalry game to start up the season. We got a spread on this game. I don't think many of our friends in the desert put lines on D2 games.
No, not that I know of. I think given the state of the preseason polls, I think Pitt State's probably about a 6.5, 7.5 point favorite, if I had to guess.
Yeah. MIAA is dang good this year. A lot of ranked teams, a lot of teams receiving votes as well. Gonna be it's always a good year in the MIAA, but it'll be another strong year. You'll be able to listen to that game over on our sister station. That is Country 1069 coming up tonight. Kickoff at 7 o'clock. Join Jake, Fletcher Terrell, and Trenton Craxner for the call of that one again over on Country 1069 tonight. Here on 580 Sports Talk, the rest of this hour, we've got a bunch to get to. We'll do today's Chiefs over-unders for the season. How are we feeling about the special teams this year for the Chiefs? We'll get to that here in just a moment. We'll play either or over-under, non-Chiefs specialists edition coming up in a few minutes. And we'll talk to Bill Williamson, who covers the Las Vegas Raiders for SB Nation and Silver and Black Pride on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline as we continue our whip around the AFC West and the Chiefs' opponents for this coming year. Your texts are still welcome, 785-272-9429. And, of course, you can comment live on the YouTube stream. Just go to youtube.com, look up 580 Sports Talk. That is the name of our channel. It's so easy to find because it is also the name of our show, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed. We're up to 325 right now, continuing to grow. We appreciate you guys who have subscribed, checked out our content, watched the show on YouTube every day, hop in the comment section, and all of that. We will have our first Washburn video recap going live tonight once Jake and Fletch wrap up the broadcast from Pittsburgh and Carney Smith Stadium today. So you have that to look forward to on our YouTube channel coming up tonight. By the way, the Royals lost last night.
They did lose last night. Not humiliatingly.
On the micro, no. Macro, it's now 10 losses in 11 games.
They're also 53 games under 500 for the first time in franchise history, which is altogether not what you want.
What is the pace right now? Do we know? So they've played 135 games. They've got 27 left.
Are they going to get to 50 wins?
They need 9 wins in 27 games.
Well, a third of their games, which they have not managed to do.
No, they're only winning 30.4% of their games this year, which, by the way, gives them a 162-game pace of 49.2 wins.
Yeah.
50 is not a guarantee.
No.
In fact, it would be a stretch at this point.
You know, I say not humiliatingly last night. They did get struck out 7 times by the immortal Andre Jackson in the first 3 innings. That was first big league win for Mr. Jackson. Yep. Congrats to him. Bobby Witt Jr. homered last night, though.
Number 27.
Yeah, 27, 3 away from 30-30, which would be a really cool accomplishment. The Royals also hit a triple last night. Those were 2 of their 4 hits. They lost 4-1.
I mean, what do you say? Angel Zerpa wasn't awful.
Yeah, he's fine.
Wasn't good.
No, wasn't good. But he gave up a dinger right away. I mean,
yeah,
you knew what kind of time it was. It was 3-0 after an inning and a half. Yeah, vibes are getting worse, which I didn't think was possible. There was a moment there. There was a moment in time where it felt like, hey, you know, the Royals are losing these games, but they're competitive. That moment appears to have passed. They have lost 9 of their last 10 and 12 of their last 14.
Jeez, man. That's terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty grim.
32 is now the home run pace for Witt, though.
Yeah, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
He's got 3 more home runs in him in September, for sure.
It'll be the first 30-30 season in Royals history.
Yes. Again, I know people will say, well, didn't Carlos Beltran go 30-30? Yes, he did, but he only did that in half a season as a Royal. He finished all of those accomplishments as a Houston Astro. So it doesn't really count in Royals team history.
No, that definitely does not count. That absolutely does not. That pretty much does it for the Royals today because
what else is there to say?
Talking about the Chiefs is a whole lot more fun.
They did not claim any of the Los Angeles Angels who hit waivers.
See,
they had a chance to do the funniest thing possible and just claim all those guys.
Yeah. Why not? Seriously, like, who is hurt by claiming Hunter Renfroe?
Whoever it is you're trying to play in the outfield that actually is going to be on your team next year, like Nelson Velasquez, that's who's hurt.
Yes.
I don't know. I would have claimed Giolito. Let him try and rebuild his value for a month, and or like do an extension right then and there. Say, hey, we'll pay you for next year. We know it's been an awful year for you.
I was going to say,
but pitch out the string, see if you like it, and let's do a 1 year, $12 million extension for next year.
And if he heats up, you trade him by May 15th, and you're fine.
Yeah.
I dislike that. Although that Cleveland ended up claiming, what was it, 3 dudes or 2?
Yeah, they claimed Giolito and both of the relievers.
They are
2 of the relievers, Matt Moore and Ronaldo Lopez.
They're 5 games out of the division and 11 games out of the wild card.
When they were 1 game out of the division at the trade deadline, they traded their starting second baseman / shortstop. They traded Ahmed Rosario, and they traded some other guys too. Like they sold. They were a game out and they sold. Now they're 5 out at the end of August. They're like, hey man, I don't know. The Twins are still kind of butt. Maybe we can make a run.
Really well-run team you got there, Cleveland. All right, let's get to today's Chiefs over-unders. We're going specialists here, okay?
We are about at the bottom of the barrel on these.
Yeah, I'm going to be blunt with you. Jake put these in. I've got a few others, though, some non-traditional prop bets for us to supplement the selection today. All right, number 1, we're going to start with Harrison Butker. Over-under 25 made field goals this season.
25.
He has in his career made 25 or more in 4 of his 6 seasons.
Made 18 of 24 last year, but that was only in 13 games. He missed 4 games with the injury. Last healthy years, he's made 25.
Yeah. Yeah, 25 of 28 2 years ago, 25 of 27 the COVID year.
Yeah.
He has twice led the NFL in field goals attempted. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. Obviously, he was hurt last year, and I don't think he ever got right.
No.
Like, it never felt like he was all the way right last season. I think if he's healthy, he's one of the best. Is he the best kicker in the NFL when he's healthy?
I'm still taking Tucker.
Yeah.
He just hit a 66-yarder 2 years ago.
Yeah, I forgot he was still kicking around.
Yeah, Butker's probably
Pun
in your
intended.
top 5, though. I'm trying to think of any bet. Daniel Carlson's up there. He's really darn good.
Yeah, like there are guys with maybe bigger legs, but like
William Butker kicked a 62 last year.
Yeah, Butker's still got a monster leg. Yeah, he did that while he was hurt.
Yeah.
So, I think Butker's one of the best in the business. I think he goes over 25.
Yeah, I think so too. He's made for his career 88% of them. He's attempted over 20. Last year, he only played 13 games, so the fewest he's ever attempted 24. I mean, if he attempts 28 to 30 again, I think he's definitely going to eclipse that number. So I think we'll see plenty of butt kicker this year. Here's one. I'll give you, what's his career percentage on extra points? 93.8%.
Yeah, so 94%, yeah.
All right, over under 95% on extra points this year.
He's only gone over that twice. He didn't miss one as a rookie, and he was 47 of 49 2 years ago. Last year, he missed 3. 2 years ago, he missed 6. I go under. I go under 95%.
I would too.
Yeah, I think I missed 3 or 4. They're not gimmies anymore.
No, they're not.
I mean, haven't been for a long time, I guess, but I don't know. They feel like even less of a sure thing now than they were when we started moving them back. I don't know why that is.
I imagine it is a mental thing for kickers. Like for his career, what is Harrison Butker? Okay, on field goals from 30 to 39 yards, and the extra point is 33, Harrison Butker has made those field goals 94.8% of the time. His extra points, he's only made 93.8. So he's been better at the more valuable play over the course of his career than he has been on the extra point. I think it's a mental thing. I really do. And I don't really care that they moved it back. I guess it changes things a little bit. You get more 2-point conversions because of it.
Makes the play a little less predictable.
But I will say, the humor of a guy missing a 19-yard kick really was something special.
Yes.
You know, it only happened about a half a dozen times a year.
Shout out to John Carney, the funniest miss in the history of the NFL. After the lateral play that the Saints did against the Jaguars, and they were going to tie the game and have a chance to still go to the postseason.
Just dead shove.
They had an unbelievable 5 lateral touchdown on the last play of the game, and then John Carney missed the extra point.
Okay.
And the Saints color announcer on radio just went, no!
It's one of my favorite radio calls ever.
It's so good.
I don't know. Can we get audio real quick?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. I don't know if this is the TV or the radio. All right, that's the TV call. I don't have it. I was trying to find the radio call because it really is just no. Color guy screaming. Oh man, it is
Cost
so
him the
good.
playoffs. I think it got Jim Haslett fired.
I believe it did. Didn't he said after the game? Someone asked him, didn't you say you would trust your life on John Carney's leg? And he goes, "Guess I'd be dead." So funny. Vance, by the way, he's taking the over on the
25 field
goals.
The thing that's interesting to know is that over the last 2 seasons, the Chiefs have tried fewer field goals. And that's a function of other teams trying fewer field goals because other teams have come to the understanding that field goals are not how you beat Patrick Mahomes. So if the other team is going to be more aggressive about going for it on the plus side of the field in what would normally be considered field goal range, the Chiefs have had to be more aggressive in return. So you don't see him kick as many field goals. I just don't think he's going to miss a lot. Even if he only attempts 28, 29, he should still make 25 of those.
The funniest stat of his career is going from 42 field goals attempted Alex Smith's last year to just 27 in Patrick Mahomes' first year.
That's a fact.
But also going from 28 extra point attempts to 69 of them in 1 year. Unbelievable. Also for Harrison Butker this year, over under his longest field goal, 60 yards. I feel like you have to go under here.
Yeah.
He's only kicked over 60, as far as I'm aware, once in his career.
That was last year. Yeah. Previous long was 58. So yeah, you go under.
Yeah.
Just you're not kicking a lot of those field goals unless it's the end of the half or the end of the game. You're not settling for a field goal of that length if you're on that side of the field and it's 4th and 1 from the 43. You just go for it.
How often are the Chiefs playing indoors they get one game in Denver. And other than that,
it's early too, so weather won't be a factor. You'd figure.
They'll play in Minnesota. They play once at Vegas.
Frankfurt's outside.
Oh, and Frankfurt's outside too. Yeah. And then the Chargers. So they only play 3 games indoors this year, which is good. Football belongs outdoors.
Yeah.
But, and maybe they'll make it to the Super Bowl. Where is the Super Bowl this year?
Vegas.
It is Vegas. Okay, well, they'll play indoors so they get there again. So, yeah, maybe not necessarily the best places to kick this year. Arrowhead's not exactly easy. They're kicking. He's got to go to Green Bay in December. That's not easy.
No.
Foxborough in December. That's not easy. And then 3 December games at home. Not the easiest kicking conditions.
What are his home road splits in his career?
Ooh, great question.
I'm gonna pull those up. I'm on Pro Football Reference right now. I'm gonna pull up the career splits. He is at home. He's actually less successful kicking field goals at home than he is on the road.
Interesting.
By almost 3%. 86 for 99 at home, 78 for 87 on the road.
Wow, that's wild. Also, amazingly wild. He has hit the exact same percentage of extra points at home and on the road. 93.8% exactly at both.
That's a little thing called consistency. Also, he's a better outdoor kicker than a dome kicker.
Interesting.
88% field goals outdoors, 87.5% in domes, 14 to 16.
Kicking is one of the more mental, you have to be mentally smart to succeed anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But in football, it's like golf. It's like golfing in football, essentially.
It's a little like being a relief pitcher.
Yeah.
Like you got one job. You got one job, go do it. And if you don't do it, you have really, really screwed up. And if you did it, then you just did what you were supposed to do. Like no, unless you make like a 64-yarder to win the game, nobody's talking about the kicker being the hero.
I do believe
you're talking about being the GOAT a lot.
Yeah. Or you have one of those 5 field goal days.
Yeah.
Barbara in the YouTube comment section asks, can we get an over-under for Justin Reed field goals and PATs?
Oh, man.
Over-under 0.5.
I say over. I think they'll blow somebody out. They'll let him kick an extra point.
I think so, too. Yeah. That's going to be
like a week 18 thing.
Yeah. Or, not that I'm hoping Butker gets hurt, but if Butker gets hurt, Reed is going to kick.
Yeah.
He is the instant impact kicker. So we'll see. That's a good one from Barbara. You guys are welcome to play along with all these over-unders, by the way, in the YouTube comment section and on the text line. Let's go to the punt game real quick. Tommy Townsend, over-under 44-yard net punting average.
Last year was at 45.5.
Yeah,
I didn't watch the punting game all that closely in the preseason, but he didn't punt very well in the preseason opener.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone up every year of his career. 40.4, 43.8, 45.6. Why can't he continue or at least hold his gains from last year? I'll go over 44 yards.
Yeah. Sure. There was a great graphic after Chiefsaholic was arrested last year that someone on Twitter made. It was a 4-way Venn diagram of Patrick Mahomes, Orlando Brown Jr., Tommy Townsend, and Chiefsaholic. And one of the ones the one that overlapped Patrick Mahomes and Chiefsaholic was damn, he's got a gun. One of them was, I think it was Townsend, Brown, and Chiefsaholic was he's not going to show up this Sunday. And it was very funny. Platinum Sombrero is the Twitter user who posted that. I don't know. I think Tommy Townsend's pretty good. He was first team All-Pro last year.
Yeah.
He's got to be doing something right. Are any of these other ones Jake put up here worth going? Over under his longest punt, 68 yards.
Career long is 76.
Yeah. Love that. That's real punting.
That's erotic punting.
Yeah. Sexual kicking.
Sure, I'll go over that. That's fine.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure. Let's go over. You know how much I love a good punt. Wanted to get to a couple of other things here. These aren't true player over-unders like we've been doing, but I was perusing some of the offshore books that I will choose not to name. They've got wilder props you can bet on.
Yeah, they do.
Less regulated, and people are maybe more desperate sometimes using these, especially in a state where you have legal sports books. The one book, though, has a bet for the stage of elimination for each team in the league. And they are miss playoffs, lose in the wild card round, divisional championship game, lose Super Bowl, win Super Bowl. What do you think has the shortest odds for anything for the Chiefs?
The shortest odds.
So the
likeliest.
The lowest payout, yeah.
And they are miss playoffs. Out in the wild card, out in the divisional, out in the championship game, or lose Super Bowl.
Or win Super Bowl.
I would say the shortest odds are lose in the AFC championship game.
Lose in the divisional round. That's plus 315. To miss the playoffs is 350. Don't bet that. Do not, you probably shouldn't be betting here anyway, but don't bet on that, okay? Do not bet on the Chiefs to miss the playoffs. It's plus 450 to lose in the conference championship game. Plus 750 lose Super Bowl, 675 win Super Bowl. I feel like there's really good value there because the Chiefs have played in the conference championship game every year with Patrick Mahomes.
Single year, yeah.
Every single year. So I feel like there's probably some kind of extra good value in there. Let's see. I had a couple other Chiefs ones that we could get to. By the way, the Chiefs, if you want to bet them to have a winning record this year, minus 1,000. I can't believe it's that good. To finish 17-0, you can bet on the Chiefs. Are they even on the board for this one? They might not be on the board, actually, to go undefeated. Yeah, I don't even. Oh, here we go. Plus 3,500. Those are the tied for the shortest odds to go undefeated this year. And then here we go. Here are the other Chiefs specialty stats or props for the year. These are dumb, but I do think that they're at least kind of fun. All right, so some of the more fun ones here. Patrick Mahomes to throw for 500 yards in any single regular season game. That's plus 225. 500 yards.
So I think he's only ever done that once, right? Was that wild game against the Rams?
Is that the only time he's gone for 500?
I think so.
It doesn't happen very often.
No, not just for him, but like for anybody.
And no, he has never done it.
Oh, he didn't even go over against the Rams. Huh?
478.
And
then he had over 500 total yards. He had 28 rush yards in that game.
Let's see. 443 against Oakland, week 2, 2019. 446 at Tennessee, week 10. That was a game they lost. 416 against the Jets in a win, week 8, 2020. 462 at Tampa Bay, the Tyreek Hill game in 2020, week 11 or week 12. 406 at Vegas, week 10, 2021. 410 at the Chargers, week 15, 2021. 423 and 446 back-to-back weeks last year, San Francisco and Tennessee.
Jeez.
But those are the 400-yard games for Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, never gone over 500.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't take that then.
No, I wouldn't either.
Plus 650. Chiefs go undefeated in division. I don't think I would. The Chargers always play them tough.
Yeah, everybody plays them tough.
Yeah.
Somebody will get them. They'll lose the division game. I mean, they've been great against the division, but like, 6-0 is hard.
Although plus 650, I don't know. There's decent value on that. How often do you think Isaiah Pacheco will go for 100 yards rushing? You can get plus 1,600 for him to do it 8 times.
Yeah,
Which,
that's too many.
In other words, you wanted to put $10 down on that. You get 160 back if it hits. Don't think that one is going to happen. No. We've got one more day of these coming up tomorrow afternoon. Right now, though, we've got to get to a commercial break. We'll come back. We'll play either or, over, under. And then later this hour, we'll talk to Bill Williamson, who covers the Raiders for SB Nation. We'll talk to him all about Las Vegas this season. That's up later this hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk. We'll continue our look around the Chiefs' AFC West foes with Bill Williamson of SB Nation coming up here in just a few minutes. But first, a round of either or over under for this week. Either or a would you rather? Would you rather have a team, a favorite team, and I'm mostly talking about being online here, that is just so boring, like they just bore you to tears, like, hey, can you do something fun? This was the Green Bay Packers until like 2 weeks ago when they hired a new social media staff. Just like nothing cool ever, nothing fun. It's just boring as hell. It's like an automated account, essentially, every time they do anything online or on their website. Or would you rather have a team that tries all sorts of stuff and it's tacky and obnoxious? The reason I thought of this is because the University of Missouri decided to put out an informational video today essentially about how to be a fan at a Missouri football game. Rules at the zoo is what they called it. And they have students, I assume they're students, instructing you what to do during a game. Like, hey guys, when our offense is on the field, shh, you got to be quiet. When the PA announcer says, we got a first down, you chant this like they've never been to a football game before. So which would you rather have? A personality for your team that's boring as hell or tacky as hell?
I go boring over tacky 10 times out of 10. Because you know what nobody's going to make fun of? Boring. Boring is unassailable. Boring doesn't even get noticed enough to get made fun of by anybody else. But tacky will get you made fun of 10 times out of 10. I saw so many people dunking on that Mizzou video today, all up and down my timeline. KU fans, K-State fans, even some Mizzou fans who thought it was kind of lame. Like, yeah, everybody lined up to dunk on that, and I would rather not have anything worth being dunked on.
Like, here, flip my audio up for 1 second. This is how the video well, we're gonna get feedback here. Never mind. You can imagine how. Remember the K-State fans. Remember the power towel. Remember the power towel video. Bring your power towel to every game.
To every game.
Yeah, this is Missouri's version of this. KU, I'm gonna give you a piece of free advice. Travis Goff, if you're listening, do not ever do this. Do not ever try to get the student section to do this. Never make a video like this. You'll be better off for it. Your fans know how to be fans, I promise.
All right, I got either or, and it's 3 options, and it's tonight's college football slate if you only have one television, which most people, you know, they got one screen or they just have the resources or the time to watch one game. Not everybody, you know, does the multi-screen or the multitask or has the whole man cave setup. So we're actually kind of doing a public service here a little bit.
Absolutely are.
There are 3 games tonight that all kick off at roughly the same time. One at 6:30, the other 2 at 7, that I would consider interesting as Division I college football goes. One of them is NC State, UConn on the CBS Sports Network. One of them is Nebraska, Minnesota on Fox. One of them is Florida, Utah on ESPN. Which of those games are you putting on your one screen, your main screen? Which game is the most worth your time? Not which game has the best team or which team has the best players or which broadcast is going to be the best. Just what are you going to enjoy the most? What will be the most enjoyable 60 minutes of football?
So I might be in this predicament tonight. Thursday, it's Big Brother night. So I might be using one TV while that gets the main TV. It's a big deal in our household. So I might be relegated to TV 2 tonight for a little bit for the games. Minnesota, Nebraska is going to be a horrible game. That is going to be ugly and gross and not fun to watch at all. I don't care who wins. We'll make a prediction a little bit later on today. I've got the under in that game. I'll tell you right now, I took under 44 points. It's going to be gross. UConn, North Carolina State. I have a rule. I don't bet on North Carolina State games anymore because I've been burned too many times in the past. I kind of want UConn to win. I don't really love North Carolina State, just their brand of football.
I can't root for Jim Moore Jr.
That's fair.
It's an old grudge.
That's fair. Florida, Utah will have the best players. They should have the best matchup, even without Cam Rising. And even though Florida is legitimately going to rely on Graham Mertz this season, Florida's kind of in a bad place right now. It sort of feels like they got way too many young guys to be producers and their older guys aren't very good. So I'm going to go with that game. I think Utah does end up winning. I know Paul mentioned that earlier too. I will take that game though. I think it's got the most juice to it.
I think you could fairly argue Nebraska, Minnesota has the best chance to be like a 1-score game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, because it'll be 7-5.
Yes, it will look like Roosevelt era college football.
7-5, no touchdowns entering the fourth. It's going to be gross.
Yeah, I'll probably lean Florida, Utah myself tonight, even without Cam Rising. Plus, that's a future Big 12 team.
That's true.
Let's check out the future of the Big 12, or you can also check out the current future of the Big 12 at 6:00 tonight, right when we get done. UCF Kent State's on FS1.
Excited for that. A lot of Big 12 future teams in action today. I guess UCF's in right now, but still. Let's get to a break. We'll get to Bill Williamson of SB Nation after that here on 580 Sports Talk. With the start of the Kansas City Chiefs season just 1 week away, exactly 1 week from today, we continue this week's look around the AFC West and the Chiefs foes, and it's on to Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, and the Las Vegas Raiders. And to break down the silver and black, we welcome in Bill Williamson, who has covered the Las Vegas Raiders for many years, does so now for SB Nation and Silver and Black Pride. You can find him on Twitter at B Williamson NFL is his handle. Bill, we appreciate you joining us today to talk all things Raiders. First things first, just from a big picture, overarching perspective, what is the vibe around this Raiders team right now? Is it negative because last year didn't go so well and it's been kind of a weird offseason? Is it positive that, hey, we're into another year with Josh McDaniels, a little bit more consistency, we've still got some top-end talent? What's sort of the overall vibe of the program right now?
I don't know. It really depends on who you're asking. I think in-house it's positive, but I think, in-house on August 31st, it's positive in 32 buildings. Nationally, media, I think maybe not expecting a whole lot. I think the fan base is expecting something because fans get excited about the preseason. The Raiders look pretty good in the preseason, but the Raiders were undefeated in the preseason last year. So I don't know. Who knows? It really depends on who you talk to. I think the bottom line is the team coming off a 6-11 season made some interesting pieces, made some changes at quarterback, have some draft picks that there's hope for. You look at the defense, you wonder, have they done enough? So it's really up in the air. The betting folks are expecting 6 or 7 wins, and I think that's where you kind of start and go from there. I don't think it's one of the NFL's more interesting teams, though. Maybe they become that, but they're probably a little below average. So that's a long way of answering that question.
How do you feel about Josh McDaniels? I know we have a lot of experience prior to his time with the Raiders, where he had the disastrous stint with the Broncos, a couple of times with the Patriots where he found a lot of success as an offensive coordinator, obviously working with Tom Brady, the starting and then immediately stopping with the Indianapolis Colts. And then last year, obviously, as you mentioned, did not go especially well for the Raiders. So as the franchise enters year 2 of the McDaniels era, what is the feeling from the fan base and from you guys who cover the team about him? Do you give him kind of a year 0 last year and this is when the evaluation starts, or do you feel like he's already on some thin ice?
Well, I don't know if he's in reality he's in thin ice because Mark Davis has been very positive. I think him and Dave Ziegler who both came from New England together, has really done a good job of selling Davis on being patient. Now, if they start poorly and they have a bad year, will he be patient? We'll see. But I think they're trying to say we need 3 years. In reality, I think Josh McDaniels is a big reason why there's questions about this team. And Josh McDaniels has not been in almost 3 years as an NFL head coach, 28 games in Denver, 17 in Las Vegas. He hasn't been a good NFL head coach. He's made a lot of weird decisions, a lot of weird handling the teams, but he's made similar mistakes in both cities. Am I saying, can he become a good head coach? Certainly. There's time. He can. But he isn't yet, and that's one of the reasons why I question this team. I want to see him do the right things on game day and with his roster before you say, okay, he's a good head coach. He's just not there yet. And again, not ripping him, only putting him only on facts of what we've seen thus far. And I think his record is 17-28 as an NFL head coach. A lot of blown losses last year. So a lot of personnel mistakes. So we will see, but he's got some improvement to do.
The quarterback room looks much different now than it did last year or for the last several years, ever back since 2014. In fact, Derek Carr on the way out, not super ceremonious end to his stint with the Raiders. He's now in New Orleans. Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter now, the former Patriot and former San Francisco 49er who has had his moments. He's probably not, or at least in his career to this point, hasn't been a quarterback who might win you a game, but he has done a lot of winning. He's been a part of a lot of winning teams. Aiden O'Connell, the rookie from Purdue, I know had a big-time preseason, got a lot of hype. How is that quarterback room shaping up for this year? What is the confidence level behind Jimmy G that he can be an effective starter and get this team back to a winning record? And do you think the rookie is going to push for playing time at all?
Well, I mean, look, at Jimmy G, I think, is a guy who's been a little bit underrated. And I think one of the reasons why he's underrated is his former team, San Francisco 49ers, always wanted to replace him. So you wonder why, I don't know if they felt like they won in spite of him or not, but, he did some nice things. Is he more talented than Derek Carr? Probably not. Will he maybe make less mistakes than Derek Carr? Maybe. I think the key here for the Raiders offense to be better, and the Raiders offense has weapons. It's not bad. And they spend a lot of money. They spent this year is the third most salary cap room dedicated on offense in the NFL. So they're spending money on offense. The key is that he is a Josh McDaniels type quarterback. He played for him in New England, of course. Josh McDaniels loves having Josh McDaniels quarterbacks and guys that he feels comfortable with. And that's why he tried to trade for Matt Castle 2 months into becoming the Broncos head coach. He wants his own guys. That's why Cutler didn't work for Cutler in Denver. That's why it didn't work for Carr in Las Vegas. So he's got a Josh McDaniels quarterback now. So maybe it will work better within his system. Josh better hope so. So that's why there's some hope there. But, it's always injuries with Jimmy G. He's only played one full season in the NFL. As far as Aiden O'Connell, we'll see. I mean, he's a rookie. It's preseason. Again, he's a Josh McDaniels type quarterback. He was handpicked. So maybe he fits the system. He certainly looked comfortable and poised in the preseason, but I don't put a lot of stock into the preseason. So we'll see. Maybe he becomes a decent player. There's certainly a chance. So I think there's hope because Josh McDaniels has Josh McDaniels quarterbacks now.
Our guest joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is Bill Williamson, veteran football writer, covers the Las Vegas Raiders for Silver and Black Pride, silverandblackpride.com, part of the SB Nation family of websites. You can find Bill on Twitter at BWilliamsonNFL. Bill, the Josh Jacobs saga was a big part of this Raiders offseason. The Raiders, of course, last year chose not to place or exercise the fifth-year option on Jacobs, a former first-round pick. And then all he does is go out and lead the NFL in rushing. He held out for an extended time. Then he reported to camp. The team's got a one-year deal done in a similar vein to what the Giants were able to do with Saquon Barkley. Is Josh Jacobs entering his final year as a Raider? And if so, what should be expected from Jacobs this year as an encore for that season he had last year?
Well, I think there's a chance. I mean, there's three outcomes here. He becomes a free agent. They franchise him again at probably $14-15 million, or they get a long-term deal. And you think, okay, maybe they get together for a long-term deal, but they couldn't get together this year. So what would the Raiders, unless he has a subpar year and he takes what they give him, but I think that's the least likely of the three. I think they're going to use him a lot. I think they used him a lot this last year, and in the back of their minds, they're thinking this might be it for us. So let's just use him. He's still in his prime. He's healthy. So I would expect him to get the ball a lot this year and then figure it out. But in the grand scheme of things, with the way of the depressed market of the running back, he ended up doing pretty good for his 1 year. I know he would like to get 3-4 years, but for this 1 year, he did pretty good for himself, getting $12 million.
Defensively, we know the strength of this Raiders defense, at least on paper, is the pass rush when you have a guy like Max Crosby anchoring that unit. What are the big concerns for the Raiders defensively coming into this year? And do you feel like they've done enough, whether it's via drafting or the free agent market or just developing players, to address some of those concerns that hurt them last year?
Yeah, it's just, do they have enough? The secondary looks a little deeper. A little bit of ball hawks in practice that's needed. But they're not. Maybe last year they had maybe 3 quality players on defense. Maybe now they have 5. Is that enough? They can't have key injuries. I just don't know how deep they are. And they're happy about their depth of defensive tackle. I just don't know if there's enough there. I think they're strong at pass rusher. Crosby, Jones, number 7 overall pick, Tyree Wilson. They might be decent at cornerback. I just don't know if there's enough there.
You mentioned Tyree Wilson, 7th overall pick in this most recent draft. Obviously, we've got some familiarity with him. He's a Big 12 guy out of Texas Tech. I know there were some injury concerns going into the draft. What has the buzz been around Tyree Wilson, and how ready is he to contribute at a high level as a rookie?
Well, look, he just started practicing 2 weeks ago. He played his first preseason game the other day. He, is his first game action in 9 months, his first NFL action. He played, I think, a series. He shows some pass rush burst. He's very long. Kind of freakishly built. I think he has a chance to be a good player, and if he is, he's going to go a long way because Max Crosby on the other side of him is a premier player, an elite defensive player. So, I think the Raiders did a nice job drafting him, and he was the best player there. He fell a little bit because of that injury, but he's healthy now, and if he doesn't have a setback, and they're not expecting that, he has a chance to be a good player.
One former Raider, as of 24 hours ago, is a new chief. Neil Farrell, the defensive tackle out of LSU, who was a 4th-round pick last year, traded to the Chiefs on cutdown day in exchange for a 6th-round pick. What was your read on Farrell's rookie season? Is there maybe some talent there that the Raiders, for whatever reason, couldn't get him to access, or do you think the Raiders might have been right to give up on him so soon?
Yeah, but obviously they don't feel like he's fit. I mean, this regime's pick. I mean, it's like, usually when teams trade draft picks early in their career, it's from the other regime, but this was their pick. It was their first defensive player they picked. So it's kind of eye-opening in where they sent it to. So obviously, I don't think they feel like he has much of a future, but who knows? We'll see. Played 158 snaps last year. It's pretty nondescript. was hurt this training camp, but maybe the Chiefs can coach him up. I don't think it was obviously the Chiefs felt good about him during their draft process, and I don't think you can argue about Chiefs draft process. So why not worth the 6th rounder for pretty good value there? A young kid, 2nd year, 4th rounder.
Couple more questions for Bill Williamson, who covers the Las Vegas Raiders for SB Nation and silverandblackpride.com. He joins us here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline as we continue our look around the AFC West for this 2023 season. You mentioned a moment ago, Bill, talking about this defense. Don't know if there's enough. There's some really good talent up front. Max Crosby, one of the best edge rushers in the league. You've got some interesting guys in the secondary, but is there enough defensively? I've got the same question, but when it comes to the pass catchers for this team, we know about Devontae Adams. I'm a Packers fan personally, so I know all about Devontae Adams and how great he is, and he's still at the top of his game, I think. You add Jacoby Myers, who is a nice player. He's a fine player. Hunter Renfrow is still around. No more Darren Waller, who I know has been banged up recently. He's replaced by Austin Hooper and then the rookie Michael Mayer. Do the Raiders have enough to stay competitive with the rest of this division offensively when you look at the pass catcher group?
Well, they better, because they spend a lot of money there. I think it's like $42 million on the receiving core. Adams, Myers, Renfro are all making big money. Renfro was a disappointment last year. He was injured a lot. He didn't really fit into the offense. He has to fit in. Myers is a guy who's another McDaniels guy. He was a New England guy. He's a solid player. They think they can get a lot out of him. I think they do have enough with those 3 guys. We'll just see, who can stay healthy. Again, this team overall is not that deep, I don't think. So health is key, just like most teams. And, I'm interested in Meyer at tight end. A lot of rookie tight ends don't. He was very highly rated, and he has a chance to become a Pro Bowl player, I think. But he has to, it might take a while. Tight end is one of the tougher positions to adjust to in the NFL, and it takes. If you look at the great tight ends, a lot of them didn't have huge impacts as a rookie. I'm not saying that's going to be the case with him, but I'm just, interested to see his development.
Were there any players who you were surprised were cut, or alternately, any players who you were surprised were kept on the 53-man roster when those cuts were made this week?
Yeah, I think the guys that are kept aren't really worth talking about, frankly, because you just don't, once the NFL gets going, these number 53, number 49, we don't see them much. They're the inactive. There were some names that were cut. Duke Shelley, they cut about 6 or 7 free agents they signed. Cam Sims, a receiver, Duke Shelley, Jordan Willis, a defensive end. So there were some guys that, were surprised. I think the Farrell trade was a surprise. So yeah, there was a couple.
All right, Bill, last couple things we've got for you. Number 1, what's your record prediction for this year? 17 games. Where do the Raiders land?
Let's go 7-10.
So so overall, then, general improvement, even if it's not enough to quite get over 500.
No. Look, this is a team that they took over 10-17, 21. Again, they you can say they got lucky to make the playoffs, but they made the playoffs. This new regime came in and gave new contracts to Carr, Renfro, Crosby, Darren Waller. Now 2 of those guys are gone. They traded the 1st and 2nd round for Devontae Adams. They gave a 32-year-old Chandler Jones $51 million guaranteed. They announced that their Super Bowl window was open. So if they win 13 games in those first 2 years, that is not improvement. So they got to make the playoffs for it to be improvement in my mind, and maybe they do. But I think the biggest problem is the AFC is so deep.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's what I was going to ask next is if you have like a breakout candidate, I guess, someone who, if the Raiders are going to get to that spot, get to a spot where they can contend for a playoff position, where they can take down some of these better teams in the division alone with the Chargers and the Chiefs, but the other good teams in the AFC in general. Who is someone, or who are a couple of guys who are going to have to step up and become star players to help elevate this roster?
I'll just go one on defense and one on offense, one on defense, and it's Jimmy Garoppolo playing at a career level and staying healthy, and it's Tyree Wilson just becoming a monster. And if that's the case, him and Crosby and Jones will be a lot of problems for people.
Bill Williamson covers the Las Vegas Raiders for silverandblackpride.com and for SB Nation. You can find him on Twitter at BWilliamsonNFL, and he's joining us here on 580 Sports Talk to break down the Raiders as we continue our look around the AFC West. Bill, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much for stopping by, and enjoy the season as it kicks off next weekend.
Hey, thanks for having me. Take care.
That's Bill Williamson from SB Nation. Really good insight on the Las Vegas Raiders. Man, tough for a few K-State Wildcats. Duke Shelley and Jordan Willis getting cut.
Yeah, Duke Shelley was somebody who I thought was carving out a nice little NFL career, and was kind of surprised to see him cut. That's not a great secondary, and I was surprised that a veteran presence like Shelley didn't catch on.
I do think the Raiders are interesting in the sense that they have a couple of guys who are legit top tier talent. Like Max Crosby is an elite edge rusher. He is that good. Devontae Adams is that good at wide receiver. He's still, even if you don't think he's number one in the league anymore, he's a top 3 to 5 guy in the NFL. I genuinely believe that. But the drop from their best to their average, their roster average, is so steep. Like the Chiefs, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is the best of the best. Kelsey's best of the best. But their average roster quality is still good. The Raiders is such a fall off. I do not think they will at any point this year be contending for the playoffs. I find that hard to believe.
I don't either.
We've got half the show left, and when we come back to lead off the 4 o'clock hour, finally, our KU and K-State season previews. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday, August 31st, the final day of the month. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. We're with you until 6 o'clock today. We've got our semifinals for the month of August in What Is Wrong With You Today. We're going to do the championship tomorrow. I know it'll be September 1st, but then we avoid doing the one-day week thing. We get a little extra time. That means we got extra stories yesterday, so it all works out perfectly fine. So we will do your What Is Wrong With You semifinals today, and then we'll do the championship coming up tomorrow. Also this hour, we'll talk to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. An hour later than normal, we had to make some room for Bill, so we'll have Pistol on at 4:30 today for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around.
That's right.
Yes. Got to make sure I get that right.
Shout out to our friends.
Yes, shout out to Lewis Toyota, the new sponsors of the High School Whip Around and the new sponsors of our high school game of the week. That's right, the Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week, first of the year, coming up tomorrow night. 7 o'clock kick, 6:45 pregame on Country 106.9. Seaman hosting Topeka West in a City versus City United Kansas Conference matchup. That is coming up tomorrow. We'll talk about that and every other game going on around the city with Rick Peterson coming up a little bit later on this afternoon, a little bit later on this hour. We'll also get to our KU and K-State team previews coming up here in just a matter of moments. Again, text line open to you. Whatever thoughts you have on what we're talking about today, let us know on the text line, 785-272-9429. And you can comment on YouTube as well. Just go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, subscribe to the channel, and then check out the live stream. Dan and I live on video with you today. Comment section is open as well, live and rolling throughout the show. We'd love to know what you have to say about anything we're talking about on this afternoon's program. By the way, I should note, we've got some K-State tickets to give away. We will give them away. We will give away 2 pairs. One of them we will give away this hour. One we will give away in the 5 o'clock hour. So be listening. We're not going to tell you when, but be listening this hour. We will have a pair of K-State tickets to give away. So keep your ears peeled or your eyes peeled. I guess you can't really keep your ears peeled. You can't really peel your eyes either. It's kind of an idiom. Anyway, beside the point, be listening, be paying attention, whether you're listening online, listening on your radio, watching online, to when we announce that we have a pair of K-State tickets to give away this hour to the season opener. Speaking of Kansas State, Dan, let's start there with our team previews for the Wildcats and the Jayhawks for the 2023 season. K-State kicks off Saturday, 6 o'clock kickoff against Southeast Missouri State. SEMO, 4 o'clock pregame, all the action right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, your home for Wildcat Athletics, 580 WIBW. What is your biggest question mark about, or not even question mark about the team, because I feel like that's not quite what I'm going for here. Just what is your biggest question about this team this year? What are they going to accomplish? Where are they going to fill a hole? Who's going to step up? Whatever it might be. Going into the opener, going into this season, what is question number 1 for you about this team as they try to defend a Big 12 title?
I think the most fascinating question is who are going to be the targets to make the passing game go? Because they've got an outstanding quarterback in Will Howard. And a quarterback who, and I say this as a big Skylar Thompson fan. Like I think I liked Skylar Thompson as a player. I don't want to make it sound like people disliked Skylar Thompson. I was higher on Skylar Thompson than a lot of people. Like I was higher on his abilities, higher on what he brought to the table than some people I think were. He's one of the best Kansas State quarterbacks ever. I think Will Howard has a higher ceiling than Skylar Thompson. I think he can make more throws than Skylar Thompson. So I say that to say it's been a minute since Kansas State has had a quarterback who can do this stuff in the passing game. And last year, he had a big, fast target in Malik Knowles. He had a veteran guy in Cade Warner. Ben Sinnott came out of nowhere, blew up, was one of the best tight ends in the country in the second half of the season. So now what does it look like this year with no Knowles, with no Warner, another year of Ben Sinnott? I think he's going to be tremendous. Then the receiving group, like who takes the big step forward? Hearing a lot of good things lately about Keegan Johnson, the Iowa transfer,
including from Fitz yesterday.
Yes. Sounds like he's the real thing and should make a pretty significant impact right away. I've always liked Phillip Brooks, and he just has had limited opportunities in the offense, but I think he's a yak guy, a space guy, and is going to be capable of like 1 or 2 times a game breaking off a big play, helping the offense move forward. RJ Garcia had his moment in the Big 12 championship game. Don't forget that name this year. I think he'll get more opportunities, but I'm just really interested to see. I think as good a passing attack as Kansas State has had in a long time, as multifaceted, as unique, as aggressive through the air as Kansas State has been in a long time, complementing a running game that I think I'm not going to say it's not going to miss a beat, because like you can replace a great player. It's hard to replace a special player. And Deuce Vaughn was special,
right,
with a capital S. You do not replace Deuce Vaughn. But Treshaun Ward and DJ Giddens are going to be productive. They're going to produce. They're going to churn out yards. They're going to be tough to bring down. I think Kansas State will once again have a very good rushing attack. I just, like, this is a Kansas State offense that has a chance to be really, really outstanding. And that's what I'm most excited to watch this year.
I think for me, it all comes down to the secondary. That's where I have the biggest question, and I'm questioning who is going to step up and take ownership. And I know guys are, in there as starters right now, and technically we know who is going to take ownership of these positions based on what the coaches have picked going into the year. But you lost 2 NFL players at your starting cornerback spots in Julius Brents, who now I guess is going by Juju in the NFL. I guess that's what his mom calls him.
Okay.
I saw that during a preseason game, and I thought, who is that? Oh, it's Julius Brents. And Josh Hayes. Those 2 guys were great last year, and they were good enough that they were both drafted, okay? Not even just, they made it to camp or they made a practice squad. No, those dudes were drafted in the NFL. That's how good they were. We know this safety group is going to be good. Kobe Savage, one of the best defensive players in the Big 12. I know Will Lee is generating a lot of attention. That's a guy who Fitz has mentioned to us, I think 3 weeks in a row, that he is really interested in seeing what Will Lee can do, the transfer in from the JUCO ranks. But who is going to step up at those boundary outside corner spots and fill those roles? Because more so than with the offense and Deuce Vaughn, you're not like replicating what Deuce Vaughn did, because you're right, he's one of the best players in the history of the program.
Yeah, you can't replace like all that stuff. You can get close on the numbers, and I think Kansas State can get close on the rushing numbers.
Sure,
with Ward and Giddens, but you can't replicate all the things that made Deuce Vaughn special. It's just going to be a different looking offense, because there were so many times that Deuce Vaughn's production came in the form of, hey, Deuce, do something awesome. We're going to get you the ball. You go do something incredible. And then he would.
And I think that the other thing you can do with your running backs in this specific case is you can do different things. You can't do what Deuce Vaughn did because he was so special, but you can call a little bit more that fits the skill set of DJ Giddens. You can call a little bit more that fits the skill set of Treshaun Ward. You can find a way to mitigate that loss by playing up the strengths of your running backs. You can do similar things with wide receivers when you find new guys, or the quarterback or whatever. Defensively, at those cornerback spots, when you get right down to it, you got to cover that guy. You got to get right in front of that guy across. When they play Oklahoma State on a Friday night in Manhattan this year, you've got to get across from DeJon Stripling. You've got to guard that guy. You've got to stand face-to-face with Brennan Presley. You've got to guard that guy. Or Luke Grimm or Quentin Skinner. Throw any Big 12 receiver out there. You've got to guard that guy one-on-one, or maybe with some help, but you know what I mean. Who is going to be able to do that? K-State had 2 guys who were great at it a year ago. In the Big 12 championship game, I swear, Julius Brents, I think it was the first play he broke up. They were coming toward us. We were in the one end zone where the stop was made in overtime. And Julius Brents broke a throw up in the end zone. And I immediately said, he's so bleeping good. And I didn't say bleep. And I believe I made a comment about this dude's going to get drafted and play on Sundays.
Yeah.
Like, you can just tell with that kind of skill. I'm not saying K-State doesn't have that, but that to me is the biggest question, is how do you replace that? Because the rest of this team, if everyone's healthy up front, their line's going to be really good. As long as everyone's healthy in the second level, their linebackers are going to be damn good. I think the offense is going to be in the upper-ish echelon of the Big 12 this year. There are going to be some good Big 12 offenses this year. I think K-State will be right up there with that group. You just have to be able to limit explosive plays from your opponents. And I think that's where I don't even know about worry. That's just where I have the most intrigue.
I'm really high on Jacob Parrish. I think that as a true sophomore, he can be one of the best corners in the Big 12. Will Lee getting a ton of buzz. They wouldn't have moved Marquise Siegel to safety if they didn't think that they had a good cornerback.
That's a good point.
I think that was really telling. That's a veteran guy, Siegel, from North Dakota State, and they moved him to a safety spot. They felt like they could do that based on who they had in the corner room. So that gives me some room for optimism there as well. You're absolutely right. They do have to find something in the secondary, but we have sung the song the last couple of seasons, and they've found it with the transfers, with young guys stepping up. They've made it work, and I give them the benefit of the doubt.
We know who the stars are. Treshaun Ward's going to be big. Every offensive lineman is as big of a star as an offensive lineman in college can be.
Yes.
Will Howard is, I think, going to be drafted next year. Defensively, we know Khalid Duke. We know Deuce Green. Give me a breakout candidate. Give me someone who you think, and maybe it is Jacob Parrish. Give me someone who you're going to hitch your wagon to and say, this guy is going to be an impact player, even though we haven't talked about him.
I'm a big Jacob Parrish guy, so I'll give you him, and I'll give you Nate Matlack. I think Nate Matlack was primed for a big year last year and dealt with some injuries. Brennan Mott kind of took some of his shine. Then, of course, there was Felix Anudike-Uzomah. So Matlack doesn't need to be the best pass rusher on this team because I think Khalid Duke is going to be that. And Brennan Mott's really good. But Nate Matlack was going to produce last year and then just had some injuries. He's healthy this year, clean bill of health. I think he's going to wreck shop. I think we're going to be talking about Nate Matlack a lot.
Yep, Matlack is one of the ones I had. I'll go back to the position I just talked about. I'm really interested in Keenan Garber. I don't know that he is going to, be Garber Island out there, but the athletic profile he has, being someone who came up as a wide receiver, he's been around this program for a long time now. I think there's some really interesting traits in the secondary. Again, I don't know that he's going to play 85% of snaps this year, but I do think he's going to play an impact role for this team. I think he's going to see the field a bunch. Offensively, I mean, Keegan Johnson is like a nailed-on starter. Like, he is going to be your number 1 or number 2 receiver throughout the year. But I don't think a whole lot of people know about him because he played wide receiver at Iowa.
Right.
And that's pretty much like playing wide receiver at Navy. Like, no one knows who you are at this point. I do think that is going to be a player, though, that if you haven't really thought about him yet, you're going to want to pay attention to him. Give me the record. What's going to be?
10-2 feels about right to me. I think best case scenario for K-State, I think they can go 11-1 and make the playoff. I think that the best,
I'd agree with that.
Best case scenario for Kansas State, they don't miss a beat at running back and they don't miss a beat in the secondary. And Will Howard has a monster year and they win all the games they ought to win and maybe steal a road game they shouldn't. They go 11-1. They beat Texas at Jerry World. And they're one of the 4 teams, gets their name called, and gets to the final 4-team college football playoff, and then is competitive for 3 quarters against Georgia instead of just 2 against Alabama like last year. That is the best case scenario, I think, for K-State. Worst case scenario, they don't have the same luck in close games as they did last year. They had some good luck in close games last year. They were really good in close games. Again, are you lucky or are you just good? Is that just part of your program's mentality?
Yeah.
I tend to believe the latter when it comes to a championship proven coach like Chris Kleiman and a program like Kansas State. I think that's a function of their mentality. And I think that they will manage to avoid a backslide into an 8-win season. So split the difference, call it 10-2, and they'll be back at Jerry World.
I think the worst case scenario, barring like Will Howard and 4 linemen get hurt, I think is 8-4. Like a genuinely good season, but it feels like, dang, we could have done more. And I would say, yeah, the upper possible result would be fighting for that 4th playoff spot. I do think that is possible. To me, the season final record comes down to 3 games. You're on the road against Texas Tech. You're on the road against Texas. You're on the road against Kansas. And that probably sounds like a homer pick at the end. If you don't think those KU guys are going to be extra tuned up for that game, I think you're wrong. Like that game, I think, is going to have some juice. How many of those does K-State win? I think they win the other 9 games. I really do. If they only lose the Texas game, that's 11-1. That's a team that's fighting for a Big 12 title again.
Yeah, and if they then turn around and beat Texas, then I guess it depends on Texas's record. Maybe Texas gets the TCU if they're undefeated.
Sure.
But no, if K-State's 12-1 and beats the only team that beat them in the regular season, I think they make the playoff.
I've been saying 9-3, but I'm kind of with Paul. Just looking at this schedule, because Paul Myerberg told us earlier 10-2. I don't see that many losses. Like, this isn't a bad schedule. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Favorable at home. Those 3 games, I think, are really what the final result of this season will hinge on. Let's get to KU. Let's do this. We'll do the same order of questions here. Biggest question for this team that you have going into this year that you think is going to impact their success?
Can they get off the field on third down?
Yeah.
It's just that simple. Are they going to have enough juice in the pass rush to allow their secondary, which I think is good on paper, to make some plays? I don't think it's good on paper. I think it's good general. I don't mean to disrespect like Kenny Logan, Kobe Bryant. I think those guys are really good, but you ask them to cover for a long time, that's hard on any college secondary. And if you don't get to the quarterback, that's what you're going to ask those guys to have to do. So it is ultimately for KU down to the pass rush. Can they get off the field on third down? Can they give Jalen Daniels more opportunities? Can they win some games in the 30s rather than having to get into the 40s to win them?
I think, can you hold up physically against the Big 12 grind? And that mostly pertains to the defense. Because, look, this is going to be one of the worst front sevens on paper, entering 2023. I think this is one of the lesser front sevens in the Big 12. That doesn't mean they cannot be successful, because I like a lot of the individual talent. Rich Miller, a steadying force in the linebacker group. I love Craig Young. I think his game is NFL bound when he is done with this season. Love his game. And I think Devin Phillips up front is going to be a massive impact player. In fact, I like the interior of the line a lot more than I did going into camp, which I think is a positive. But you've got to be able to get off the field on third down, like you mentioned. You've got to be able to stop the run. To some degree, you have to be able to stop the run. You have to be able to compete against Oklahoma's offensive line, big and burly. You've got to be able to compete against Texas's offensive line, big and burly. K-State, we know how freaking good K-State's offensive line is. You have got to be able to hold your own against that group. You've got playmakers in the secondary if you're KU. Kobe Bryant is a first-team All-Big 12 player. Kenny Logan has been a stalwart standout for this team for years now. You've got plenty of talent back there. Mello Dotson is a very good CB2 for this team. You've got great depth at safety. All that. You know what's going to make their job a whole lot easier so they're not just chasing wide receivers? Because we see it with the Chiefs all the time, right? At some point, you can only cover guys for so long before they get open. Well, if Kobe Bryant is chasing, Xavier Johnson all over the field nonstop, then eventually he's going to get open and you're going to complete a pass to him, or, name any receiver here. You've got to be able to help those guys out, generate some pressure up front, and create at least a few more plugged up running lanes. But I think this same principle applies to the offensive line. I love this offensive line group. This is the deepest offensive line KU has had in I don't even know how long, in terms of both actual talent and depth. And I think the starting 5 is really good. Last year, if you remember, it wasn't necessarily perfectly correlated to when they started losing, but as the year dragged on and the games got more physical and their opponents got bigger on the defensive front, the run game really struggled, and they had a much harder time protecting either Jalen Daniels or Jason Bean. Didn't give up a ton of sacks, but allowed a bunch more pressure. They have got to be able to hold up stronger for a full 12-game regular season slate as well. Your breakout player candidate.
I think it's going to come from the front seven. Somebody's going to have to be that impact pass rusher, that impact playmaker, particularly if they're a down lineman, defensive lineman. Jeremy Robinson, I guess, is like an easy pick because he's the most experienced guy back. But boy, a lot of Gage Keys buzz this offseason, and the Minnesota transfer really intrigues me. Good size, 290, and I think he can make an impact this year.
I love Devin Phillips up front. I think Gage Keys is a great pick. You're right. There has been a lot of buzz there. I'll go on the offensive side for this one. I know we know that he is a big deal, and KU knows that he's going to be a big deal. I think Daniel Highshaw is in for a big year, assuming that the hip is all good and that there are no further injury setbacks because he has been banged up in his career. Devin Neal's a stud. Okay, he is going to be, there's an outside chance at first team all Big 12 for him. I think he'll make an all-conference team when the season is over. He's got a chance to go back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he's got NFL dreams. I know that. Michael Swain, who we talked to on Tuesday, he has said over at fog.net before, NFL teams are genuinely intrigued by Highshaw's ability going laterally, not just the find a hole, hit a hole, go, but his shiftiness, his ability to change direction, his ability in the passing game. We saw that crazy highlight, remember, against Duke when he had the great spinorama 70-yard touchdown run after catch. I think he is going to do some things this year that make people believe, wow, this team actually has 2 running back ones. I think, again, got to be healthy, but I do think he's got that kind of potential. Also, I'll just give a shout out to Luke Grimm because I will take literally any chance to talk about how big of a fan of Luke Grimm I am. Record prediction, what's it going to be for KU?
So I think a lot of people think Illinois is the swing game, right?
Yep.
Like if they beat Illinois,
I think everyone thinks that.
If they beat Illinois, they'll definitely make a bowl. And if they don't beat Illinois, they might struggle to make a bowl. Illinois lost a lot of NFL talent.
Tons of it.
Lot of NFL talent. They lost their best running back. They lost their best defensive players. They lost their defensive coordinator, who's now the head coach at Purdue.
Yup. Ryan Walters leaving, I do not think has been talked about nearly enough going into that game. Like, Bielema's teams are always going to have their brand of football. Ryan Walters was a good enough defensive coordinator that he got hired in the Big Ten as a head coach. Like, that's not just, next man up. It's not quite that easy.
I think they're beating Illinois, getting out of conference play 3-0. I think they open conference play with a win over BYU. I think they stub their toe in the next 3 games, go 1-2 in the stretch that sees them go Texas, home to UCF, and then at Oklahoma State, and then Oklahoma at home. You could win that one to go to 5-2. If they lose that one, though, I still like their chances to get 2 of the final 4 at Iowa State, home to Texas Tech, home to Kansas State, at Cincinnati. So, I wanted to talk myself into 8. I don't quite see 8, but we'll go 6. We'll say they get 6. They go bowling. They beat Cincinnati to ensure that they go back bowling. It is a tough schedule. That stretch, Texas, UCF, Oklahoma State, with 2 of them being on the road, that is a difficult stretch. And then Oklahoma right after that, but at least you catch Oklahoma at home off a bye. That to me is the second swing game on this schedule between sweating out bowl eligibility and having it no worries. Because coming off a bye at home, I expect Oklahoma to be good, but I don't expect them to be, 30 points better than Kansas like they've been for the last decade and a half.
Yeah.
So that's a game they could maybe steal and get to 7-5. I'm hedging. I think they are a good 6-6, but it's a 6-6 for me.
I'm going to give you 7-5. That Oklahoma game last year was so frustrating. KU didn't just shoot itself in the foot. It was taken like a 12 gauge to the foot constantly in that game. I think the path to 7-5 is a 3-0 non-conference slate. I do think KU is going to beat Illinois. It does help that game is at home. I think KU is going to end up winning that game. I think KU beats BYU at home. Probably loses 2 of 3 in the stretch you were talking about. Texas on the road is going to be brutal. UCF at home, I think UCF is going to be quite competitive. I think those 2 teams are peers this year, very similar.
So they're 5-2 into that. I did bad math. I think they're going to get 2 of the last 4. I'll say 7. I'm gonna adjust it forward. I think they get 2 of their last 4, and they get 7 and maybe 8 if they beat Oklahoma. That's their path to 8 is a win over Oklahoma at home.
No, I agree with you on that because I think they'll drop 2 of 3 in the Texas, UCF, Oklahoma State grouping, and I think a win there would probably be the Oklahoma State game because I'm not super high on them. OU will be tough. It's OU, but as you point out, at home off a bye, that's a big deal. They beat Iowa State. I think they beat Cincinnati on the road. Probably drop 2 to K-State and Texas Tech. I mean, even if you lose to Oklahoma based on that setup, that's a 7-win season. Yeah. That's a really good year.
Yeah.
And for a team that a lot of people have said, well, they might be better, but have a worse record. If you go 7-5 with this kind of schedule, with this much talent back, that is an unbelievable. Give them another extension. Give a new extension and a new raise to the entire coaching staff.
Build a 3rd deck at the new stadium.
And name it the Leipold deck. Name everything for him. Leipold Field at Leipold Memorial Stadium.
Home of the Kansas Fighting Leipolds.
I'm for it. Absolutely do it. Let's get to what is wrong with you. That's coming up after this break here on 580 Sports Talk. On this final day of August, we will get through today's What Is Wrong With You monthly semifinalists. Tomorrow, despite it being September 1st, we will give you our championship match for the month of August in What Is Wrong With You, which we should remind you is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications. That saves time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our play-in game begins with the Oblivious Boyfriend versus the Drug Den Dummy. The Drug Den Dummy, that is the gentleman we just had this week who had $25K in fentanyl and several thousand more in other drugs and drug paraphernalia in his apartment. He called the police about a break-in. There was no evidence of a break-in. He allowed the police into his home where his drugs were all over the floor. And he said, I got a prescription for that. And then could not display the prescription.
And then there was a whole bunch of stuff that they don't give prescriptions for.
No.
Like meth.
And baggies.
And fentanyl.
Yeah, you don't get that prescribed at the old Walgreens.
No.
So that's our Drug Den Dummy. That was the winner this week. I was not here for the Oblivious Boyfriend.
No, you missed out on this story from San Antonio where a man was hospitalized after being shot several times while visiting his girlfriend. The shooting happened about 3 a.m. on a Monday at a home. And police said when they arrived, they found a man with 2 gunshot wounds to his leg. He told police his girlfriend called and told him to meet her at her house. When he showed up, a group of men started shooting at him. The men all got into an older model truck and drove off. That part of the story would not make it a What Is Wrong With You. It is what comes after beautifully by WGXA.TV. That's what comes after the ad that makes it a What Is Wrong With You. The same thing also happened to him earlier in the evening. Around 11 p.m. Sunday, his girlfriend asked him to meet her at a nearby gas station off Culebra Road. When he arrived, his girlfriend was there with a group of guys who shot at him. He was able to drive off that time without getting shot. But 4 hours later, she lured him to another location and tried to have him killed again. And he went.
Dude, she ain't worth it, bro.
She can't be worth it.
No, absolutely no chance. This is nuts.
Like, I understand love makes you forgive.
Sure.
But there are some things that I would not be willing to forgive. And one of those things would be getting shot at.
Especially getting shot at mere hours before.
Yes. It's not like, oh, time heals all wounds, pun intended, and this happened a long time ago, but I'm sure we're past that now in our relationship. No, man, it was 4 hours ago.
Not even close to past this, yes. I haven't even showered and cleaned off. Got some time to think.
My heart is still racing.
All right, this wins.
Yeah.
That wins this battle. And I've got that winning the semifinal match itself. It takes on the Axe Attack. The pilot in his early 60s, we should mention, at Denver International Airport, who was just sick of it. What is it? Everything. Just over the edge. To the point where when the arm wouldn't go up at the Denver International Airport parking lot, you put your ticket in, it spits it back out, you pay, whatever. The arm goes up, you leave. Well, the arm wouldn't go up. And he was just so fed up with this world that he went to his car and took out an axe. He had an axe in his car. And he pulled it out and he started hacking. It started swinging away.
23 times in all.
23 hacks to break this thing. Come on, get in the gym, pal. But the 63-year-old pilot, excuse me. He was eventually apprehended. Also, someone came up and tried to wrestle the axe away from him. It became a whole physical struggle. It was a whole thing. By the way, this guy is rated to fly large jets, like 767s and 757s.
Yes, he is a United pilot.
Yeah. Look, you can't do this. It is, he is swinging. This is not a half-hearted thing. He is swinging.
Hard as he can. It's a big axe.
He was just fed up, and I can understand it. One, though, you can't wield the axe and try to destroy property. Two, get in the gym, pal. He can't take you 23 swings. I'm taking the Oblivious Boyfriend here, though.
Yeah, they're both What Is Wrong With You stories. Like, you would genuinely ask the person, what is wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
But my guy, your girlfriend put out a hit on you. How do you go back for more 4 hours later? How do you, I'm sorry. I'm not responding to that you up text.
No, I'm getting out.
Yeah, I am not up.
No. Yeah, no.
Never again.
I will never be up. All right, our second semifinal, it pairs the idiot arsonists with the meth-fueled self-baptism. Our idiot arsonists, they burned down a house, okay? But they claimed to police, hey, no, it was struck by lightning. This house was struck by lightning. That's why it burned down. And the police said, oh, okay, sure. That's right. But then the guy whose son was a tenant in the house, it's like, hey, wait a minute. Something's fishy about this. This was not lightning. This was burned down. And we've got video proof. Proof showed a gas can in the bedroom where the fire started. Oh, and not only that, the video also showed the perpetrators actually pouring the gas all over the house and burning it down. The funniest anecdote from this story is that the main witness here to this video says that due to fear of backlash, he wanted to remain anonymous, but then he also admitted that his son is the one who lived on the property. So I'm not really sure how he expected to remain anonymous.
Anonymity going to be difficult for him.
So we find out later in the story that the folks who burned the place down, they had tried to rob it the day before, and then to cover up the evidence, they went back and torched the place. But again, we're caught on security video. Your story this month, the meth-fueled self-baptism, I should say, was your story this month.
Yeah, a guy named Derek Porter from Georgia broke into a Panama City Beach church, used a cinder block to smash a window early on a Friday morning and get inside. Did $8,000 worth of damage to the church, loaded several electronics, including a TV and a computer, into his truck, along with the church's money bag. Then Panama City Beach Police Department descended upon the church and arrested Porter. They found meth and drug paraphernalia on him, stunningly. Those items may or may not explain what Porter was doing, because he did claim that he was baptizing himself in the baptistry pool at the church. Porter claimed something was holding his head down under the water while in the pool. Also, the police canine that was part of the unit also got into the baptistry.
I love it.
One of my favorite Simpsons jokes of all time, when Santa's little helper was running around the church and it had like a white robe and a chalice on his head, and Homer goes, "Oh, he thinks he's papal."
This story's got everything. We got a dude robbing a church, dude's on meth, they're trying to baptize himself, and we've got a fun dog story. This has everything.
Yes, I think this one advances.
I would agree with you on that. The idiot arsonists, they are idiots, and they are indeed arsonists. That is an accurate title. This story is great, though. It is so funny. The visual of him baptizing himself is incredible. So that, for me, is the winner. You have that vote as well.
Yes.
So that sets up a championship match tomorrow. The meth-fueled self-baptism and the oblivious boyfriend. Those are our finalists for What Is Wrong With You this month. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. The Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around with Rick Peterson is up next on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us now on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, it is the one and only Rick Peterson, who covers all of our local teams, Preps and Washburn. For topsports.news, head over to the website for all the best coverage of prep sports throughout Topeka and Shawnee County. You can also follow Pistol on Twitter, where his handle is @Peterson_Rick, and he joins us this time every Thursday. Well, normally it's at 3:30, an hour later today, but every Thursday nonetheless, for the Lewis Toyota high school whip round. Appreciate our friends at Lewis Toyota sponsoring the high school whip round this year. Pistol, you are already on site. Fall sports have begun for high schools in the city. Where in the world is Rick Peterson this afternoon?
Right now, I'm at Hayden High School watching Hayden High soccer versus Topeka High soccer, almost halftime, and Topeka High's up 2-1.
Exciting. We're finally here. We have finally reached it, Pistol, and now we can talk about some high school football that begins in the city coming up tomorrow. We will be up in North Topeka for Seaman Topeka West. We'll get to that matchup coming up here in a few minutes, but let's just whip around, Pistol, and talk about all the games going on with all of our city teams. And speaking of Hayden, let's start with last year's sub-state qualifiers in Class 3A. Bill Arnold's Hayden Wildcats. Another challenging but exciting schedule this year. Another year with a lot of hype, a lot of expectations. They'll start their season with Olpe coming up on the road tomorrow night. And I don't think you could ask for anything more, Pistol, from a team that we expect big things from this year in Hayden to get a really tough test to open the season.
Yeah, Opie is always good. Chris Smith's team, there's, multi-state champs, I believe, also won basketball championships under Smitty, and they're always good. Played the heck out of them last year. I think it was 21-7 last year, Hayden. So it's always a good test. I mean, those, they're smaller schools, but those tests like Olpe and Silver Lake and Rossville, they're a little smaller, but they have the tradition. They have great programs. And I think that's great for Hayden to play those teams.
Do you feel like this is a team that is Final Four or better caliber again in Class 3A?
Yes. Yes, I think they certainly have that chance. It always depends on depth. It always depends on injuries and things like that. Yeah, I think they could certainly make a run to the final until somebody beats Andale. It's Andale's class, but I really like this Wildcat team.
I think this offense for Hayden is going to be so good this year. You bring back the combination of Wallmeyer and Strickle, which is one of the best combinations QB and receiver in the state this past year. Really looking forward to another year of that. Also, the soccer game you're at right now, it's Hayden Topeka High. Let's go to the Centennial League. Let's talk a little Topeka High football. The Trojans last year, Pistol, had one of the hardest schedules, not just in our area, in the entire state. I did the math. Their opponents last year had a winning percentage of over 710. 71+% of their opponents had 71% of their games were wins. It's another challenging schedule this year. They're going on the road against Mays to open the season. Beyond record, what would success be for Topeka High this year, the latest year for head coach Carlos Kelly? What would success look like for this program?
Well, make some progress. It's basically the same schedule. So try to play teams closer than you did last year. Maybe try to get a good win over Emporia again, which was their one win last year. But play teams closer, play teams more competitively. And when you look in the mirror, be able to see improvement. And I think, they got 3 or 4 really good players that I really like, but they only have like 4 seniors. They're going to be very young, inexperienced. I think they're still trying to catch up from the COVID year when they didn't get to play, their first 3 or 4 games. And then the middle schools didn't play at all that year. So I think Carlos is still having to kind of make up some ground. But I think that would be improvement for them just to be able to see some progress.
We're chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.news for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Round here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Make sure you're checking out TopSports.news for all of Pistol's phenomenal coverage. The prep parade covering all of our local football teams. Absolutely phenomenal coverage of the non-football fall sports as well, all at TopSports.news. Our other city team in the Centennial League, let's talk about the Washburn Rural Junior Blues, another team that's got state championship and league championship aspirations, for this coming year. They open up at home against Wichita East coming up this week. And this is another team, Pistol, that has a thrilling schedule, I think. Wichita East, tough game. DeSoto, tough game coming up next Friday. Piper, Manhattan, Junction City, those are their first 5 games of the year. We're going to find out a lot about this Junior Blues team right away.
Well, they coulda, shoulda, maybe got beat last year by East. They were down and came back in the fourth quarter and pulled that game out. But that was about 1,000 yards of total offense, 91 points. So I don't know if we want to expect that again, but I think it will be a very competitive game right out of the chute.
They don't bring a ton back, Pistol. I believe it's 5 starters offensively, 5 starters defensively for Steve Bueller's team. But the players they are bringing back are some of the best we have in the city. Brandon Deweese at quarterback, Paxton Bettis on the defensive line, just to name a couple of them. We talked about this last week, I believe it was, how much top-end talent they have back. That's the kind of thing I think that can carry you through some of these early tough games.
Well, and Coach Bueller really likes their balance. I mean, and when I say balance among classes, they got some really good seniors, they got some really good juniors, and they got some really good sophomores that saw some action as freshmen last year, including, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but Minikue could be a star this year already as a sophomore.
Yeah, I know they're really excited about what he can do as the featured running back for them this year. Let's transition, Pistol, from the Centennial League to the United Kansas Conference, and let's talk about what will be our Lewis Toyota High School Football Game of the Week coming up tomorrow night. We will be at Seaman Stadium, myself, Dan, Greg Akagi, all there for Seaman versus Topeka West. Let's start with the Seaman side of things. I know Jared Swafford is very excited. They've got a full schedule already set to go this year, and he's really excited about the offseason this program had too. They feel like a team that's on the precipice of something, in my opinion, Pistol.
Yeah, they were 4-1 last year. And then they had some really tough games, and they lost them. I think it also hurt them that they had an off week.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was out there, same thing. Swafford really likes the way they played in the off season, their participation numbers. They got great numbers as far as kids out for football. And, I think if they don't win 6 games, we'll say, I think they might be a tad disappointed. I think they can be right there in that 6 or better range.
And I think it definitely helps, too, that they're starting quarterback Max Houston, who started out last year and had some really impressive moments, but going from sophomore starter to junior starter, I feel like you really can't even quantify how much more that experience means to a young quarterback.
No, and they got a good running back in Jack Bloom, a great receiver in Callan Barta. And I was really watching their line when I was out there, and they look to have a big mobile line. And it don't mean nothing if you don't have the boys up front. So I think that will really help them on offensive side and defensive side.
Yeah, and that tremendous line play has really been a hallmark for this Seaman team in recent years. On the other side of that game, it's the first game as the full-time head coach for Trey Parker. He did take over, coach the final 2 games of last season for Topeka West. I got to speak to Trey earlier today, and he is pumped up about this, Pistol. I know you've gotten to speak to him too a few times during the summer. He's really pumped up about this team. He's excited about the relationships that he's building with the program, with the community, and how close these guys are together. I feel like kind of similarly to Topeka High, this team obviously has a lot of growth to do, but it feels like they're really getting off on the right foot with Coach Parker.
Well, I'm a Trey Parker fan. When he got the job as the interim coach, I thought he probably had a good chance if he wanted it to get the head coaching job. One of the first calls I made was Craig Shurik, who Trey played for, and he said, "You're going to love Trey Parker." He says he's enthusiastic, he's a hard worker, the kids will love him, and that's what I've seen. So I think, and we talked about in the story I did, said their byword has to be positivity. They got to be positive about everything and just get a little better. And it's kind of a cliche, but I don't think in this case it is. They just got to continue to get better. He's their third head coach in 3 years, and that's not normally a big recipe for success. So it is going to take some time.
We've got a few more Week 1 high school football tilts to get to, previewing them with Rick Peterson from TopSports.News. It's the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around here on 580 Sports Talk. Make sure you're following Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick and checking out TopSports.News for coverage of all of our city football games coming up this weekend as we kick off the high school football season in Kansas. One last team from the UKC to get to, Pistol, Shawnee Heights. I love their Week 1 matchup. Taking on Piper, they get the Pirates at home. I think similar to Washburn Rural, where I think we'll learn a lot about them early on, I feel like it'll be the same with Shawnee Heights, a team that will have a new starting quarterback this year, Pistol, but all of their offensive skill players are pretty much back, including who I think is one of the best running backs in the state, in Alan Bowman.
Yes, and I really like Alan Bowman, and I think, and I tell you what, I like wrestlers. and he's also a very good wrestler. I like wrestlers that play football. Talon Peters of Washburn University is the same way because they're tough. They're not going to take any, they're not going to be manhandled. They're not going to be intimidated. And Alan Bowman, although he's not huge, he's that kind of player.
And I would assume, too, Pistol, it's been a hallmark for Jason Swift's teams forever. Even if they aren't winning a game, they're going to be in it to the very end because they're not going to put up or take anything. I mean, they are going to be as tough as they come. And I think they've shown that a lot in recent years. And I would assume it'll be more of the same this year.
I think it will. And I think, again, we talked about Siemens' line. Johnny Heights has some 3-year starters in the line, which that always helps. And they're not little kids. I mean, they're pretty big physical specimens, and I think that will help them. And they've been respectable, 5-5 the last 2 years. And I think again, like Seaman, I think they'll be looking to take that next step.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what Shawnee Heights can accomplish this year. Same can be said over in the Meadowlark Conference. Highland Park, they opened their season with Wyandotte, who they beat at Hummer Sports Park last year in a memorable game. It snapped their 65-game losing skid. Obviously, Jermaine Monroe has this program heading in the right direction, but it'll be a much different looking team, Pistol. You lose so many of those standout players from a year ago, Trey Richardson chief among them, but he was not the only one. But I know that Jermaine Monroe's really excited about this roster he has. Again, similarly to some of the teams we've talked about already, good balance between the classes, really good athletes, and the buy-in only continues to get better. What do you think a fair outlook for this year's version of Highland Park is?
Well, I think 500 or better. And we'll know more after these first couple of games. But I think in that league, there's some teams that they should beat no matter what they have coming back. And so I'm going to say they're going to be 500 or better. I like Jamon Wilson. I think he's going to be a really good running back. They got some good linemen. But with the main thing, and you alluded to it, when I went out to their practice, their numbers are better than I've ever seen them. There was sometimes where we had to wonder if they had enough players to have a team, and certainly not support teams. And they got their numbers are better. They were jumping around. They're enthusiastic, and I think that goes back to Jermaine Monroe because that's his personality. But I think they got it kind of turned around.
Last one we've got for you, Pistol. Let's go to the 8-man ranks. Care Paravel beginning their second year as a full Keisha member in football. They play in a brutal district. If we're just being completely blunt about it, I mean, you look up and down this schedule with Linden, with Burlingame. They open the season with Axtell, which is a state championship contender year in and year out. It's a brutal schedule, but I would imagine, and I'm curious how you feel about this, that with the experience of being through the Keisha grind a season ago in this district, having almost the entire starting lineup back, both offensively and defensively, I think it is totally fair to say this should be a much improved team. Even if the record doesn't change by much, I think this is going to be a really competitive team in this district.
Well, they open up with the state champion, Axtell, who won the Division II championship last year.
Yep.
So, and then you mentioned the other teams. But they were 3-5 last. They were 3-5 last year and had some injuries, and they got all those kids back. And I think they'll be improved. Like you say, I'm not sure you can expect another 11-0 or whatever they were, a couple of years ago. But I think they will. And Coach Benura told me, hey, we didn't even know half the teams. We weren't familiar with half the teams that we played last year. At least they got a little better idea of who their competition is this year.
Rick Peterson joins us every Thursday for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Round here on 580 Sports Talk. Make sure you check out all of his work at topsports.news. Pistol, we appreciate the time. Where are you headed tomorrow?
I'll be at Washburn Rural.
Should be a great one. Washburn Rural versus Wichita East. We're looking forward to the coverage, Pistol. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
That is the one and only Rick Peterson from topsports.news. Nobody covers our local teams better than Pistol on the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Round. And again, shout out to Lewis Toyota, our new sponsors for our game of the week and the High School Whip Round. We've got 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk, and it's coming up after the news on 580 WIBW. on 580 Sports Talk. Ooh, I'm jazzed up. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That's Dan Lucero. We're here with you until 6. No Royals baseball tonight, so Dave Ramsey will be the one kicking us out of the studio when we're done today. Royals need a break. They desperately need an off day. 10 losses in the last 11 games, 6 losses in a row. Yeah, got swept by the Pirates. Maybe if you take a day off, you can move Cole Reagans up in the rotation a day. That'd be fun. Statistically speaking, the best pitcher in Major League Baseball since he was traded to the Royals.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, isn't it?
It's awesome. I don't know if it's going to last, but it's been pretty fun for the last few weeks at the very least.
The question will be, is it a blind squirrel finding an acorn, or is there something about the way that the Royals are evaluating pitchers now and teaching and coaching pitchers now that gives them a chance to get the best out of more guys? That will be the question that I guess we'll answer in 2024.
I am hopeful it is the real deal. I am also a little bit worried that this is possibly Carlos Hernandez part 2. Now, the underlying numbers for Reagan's way better than they were for Hernandez 2 years ago.
Yeah, there's no comparison. It's not like, oh, he's gone out and put up a really good ERA, but he's been lucky on balls in play and giving up home runs, and the strikeouts are just kind of whatever. No, he's dominating. That's the thing. Like, he is dominating, and that is something that you don't do for a stretch this long unless there's something really there.
By the way, and this might not mean something to everyone, but I noticed this last night. I was playing MLB The Show, which you can say that most nights. Johan Oviedo beat the Royals so badly the other night when he threw that 2-hit complete game shutout.
Yes, he had him in a box.
That the MLB The Show folks super powered. They charged his card.
Yeah, he went up to a 99.
Yeah, so he's a 99 overall for the next 3 days. That's how badly that's what they did for Julio Rodriguez last week when he had 17 hits in 4 days. Like that's how good Johan Oviedo was.
A lot of people get supercharged after they run into the Royals.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a great thing to bet on. That's a good prop. Who will be the next supercharged player? Who pitched against the Royals last week? It's been rough. But we've got some interesting and I would argue exciting Royals news to get to coming up here in our headlines. We'll get to that momentarily. We'll also preview the college football slate tonight. Florida versus Utah, Nebraska taking on Minnesota. Got some interesting games on the slate. We'll talk about that coming up later on this hour. We've got plenty more to get to after that. Your texts are still welcome. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And the YouTube comment section can be found on our YouTube channel. It is called Creatively So 580 Sports Talk. I just realized that I lied to our listeners. I went to a commercial break at the end of last hour without giving out K-State tickets.
You did do that.
So
shame on you.
While we do headline number 1, why don't we give away a pair of K-State tickets?
Let's do it.
So we are going to take a caller. First, I will tell you, if you are going to call in, you are going to need to give Dan your full name and your email address. We will send you emailed PDF copies of your tickets. So we need your name and your email address. We'll make this easy on you. I screwed up. So we're giving away 2 pairs this hour, okay? So keep listening. You got 2 chances. And since we're in hour number 4, we'll take caller number 4. Caller number 4 to 785-272-9429. A pair of tickets to K-State season opener are yours. Caller number 4, Dan's going to man the phones and take care of this. I goofed. This is my bad. You want to roast me on the phone line? You're welcome to do so because I went to commercial too early last hour. So you've got 2 chances to win K-State tickets during this final hour of the show. Again, 785-272-9429. I believe we do have our winner who just chimed in, and we'll get their name here in a moment. If you did not win, that is okay. We have a second chance coming up later this hour for you to win some K-State tickets. It's going to be fun taking on SEMO this Saturday. So another pair of tickets will be on the line coming up later on. And again, if you are the winner later, or you just want to call in and roast me anyway, I screwed up last hour. So feel free to pile on because, well, frankly, I deserve it. So we'll get our winner here in just a moment. Then we'll start up our 580 Sports Talk headlines. This is the fun time of year where we get football tickets to give away. Not that it's not fun to go to a Royals game because we enjoy going to the Royals game. Who doesn't love a day at the K, a day in the sun at a ball game? But You only get so many football games, so a chance to go to Bill Snyder Family Stadium, watch your beloved Cats. Who can beat that? So I do believe in a moment we will have the name of our winner. And again, we will have a second chance for K-State tickets later this hour. Do we have a winner?
Yes, we do. Congratulations to Joshua. He is our winner of the first pair of tickets. So if you are wanting to call, if you you called and you heard me tell you, try us right back. Try us later, because we will give away another pair this hour.
Yes, we will have a second pair to give away. I will not goof it again. We are obligated. We have another pair of tickets we will give away today. So be listening throughout the hour here on 580 Sports Talk. All right, let us get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. Man, there's a lot of news out there today. I'm going to go with one of the more interesting pieces of information, and it comes from the NFL. TJ Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings is the new highest paid tight end in NFL history. He is signing today a 4-year contract extension with the Minnesota Vikings that will pay him at least $66 million, maximum value $68.5 million. That was initially reported by Kevin Seifert as well as Adam Schefter of ESPN. The average value of the deal, $17.13 million per year, $42.5 million guaranteed for TJ Hawkinson. That is the highest amount total and guaranteed for a tight end in NFL history. Hawkinson, in the wake of the signing, said, quote, "I'm excited to actually play football and go out there and have to not worry about anything else and move forward from everything and go win some games. That's really what we're here for." Now, I would love to point you in the direction real quick of a hysterical quote, or a tweet, from Adam Schefter today, who again reported this news originally. Now, TJ Hawkinson has been out at practice. He's been holding in. He showed up at the facility. He's been around, but he didn't play in the preseason at all, and he hasn't practiced at all. And the word has been he's had a couple of nagging injuries that have been keeping him out. Maybe some issues with balance, maybe some issues with a number of things. And I think Schefter may have actually deleted this tweet because it was kind of out of pocket. Yeah, I do think he deleted it. However, Adam Schefter at one point earlier today tweeted out that suddenly TJ Hawkinson's ear and balance problems are feeling much better, and he is able to go at practice. That just happened to come out mere hours after he signed this deal to get an extension with the Minnesota Vikings. You might remember Hawkinson was traded from the Lions to the Vikings midway through last season. He's a good player. He had a lot of hype coming out of college. Every tight end from Iowa should get a lot of hype because they're all really good. They just have a pipeline of tight ends to the NFL. Hawkinson in his career has a grand total of 18 touchdown receptions, almost 2,600 yards in 10 games with the Vikings last season after the trade, 60 catches, 519 yards, 3 touchdowns. This is an interesting case because he's a 2-time Pro Bowler. His page on Football Reference had me goofed up. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler in 4 seasons. His career high in yards is 914. He set that last year between two sides, between the Lions and the Vikings, and he also tied his career high with 6 touchdowns. It takes tight ends a while to get up to speed in the NFL. And I would imagine if they're convinced they need to pay him, that they're going to include him a lot more in their attack this year. That would make sense. You traded for him for a reason. Is TJ Hawkinson the guy who should have reset the market for tight ends?
He would not have been my first guess as to who would. Let me say that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's a good player.
I think he's a good player. I mean, former first-round pick, so obviously there was a lot.
Top 10 pick, I think.
Something like that.
He was, and I have his Football Reference page in front of me here. He was the 8th overall pick in 2019, a tight end. So clearly there was hype. Clearly there's skill there. I mean, he's a big dude, 6'5", almost 250. Doesn't love to block. Not necessarily his thing. More of a pass catcher. It's the ultimate conundrum. The Vikings have so many of these players. Like their quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is not bad, okay? Even I will tell you, he is not a bad quarterback. I don't think you're ever going to win anything significant with him, but he's not bad. So where is the line between we can upgrade and get better and we have to keep him because we probably aren't going to find better? That's their quarterback, and I kind of feel like this is Hawkinson too. Good player, useful player. You either pay him this money or you lose him a year after trading him. Good luck, I guess. I don't know. I don't know that I love this deal, but I don't know that they had any other options if they really do plan to use a tight end more often in this offense.
If you trade for a player, give away anything substantial in return for a player, you're almost obligated to re-sign that player to give them that contract. And I'm sure there's an element of that to this piece of business for the Vikings. And he is. I mean, comfortably above average NFL tight end. But yeah, not the guy I would have guessed if you'd told me that, hey, right before the 2023 season, a tight end is going to sign a new deal. I might have guessed it would have been Kelsey, honestly.
Yeah.
And I didn't think Kelsey was going to sign an extension. I'm not surprised that he hasn't. I might have guessed like him or George Kittle gets an extension or something like that. I'm surprised it was Hawkinson, but he's a good player. Like I'm not trying to knock the player. It's just, wow, him. Good for him.
Yeah, no disrespect to him, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Then whenever Kelsey does get, contract work done next, extension, whatever, it'll be fascinating because he's still truly elite. He's also old for an NFL player, so I'm fascinated where that goes. But TJ Hawkinson, your new record-setting payment-wise tight end for the Minnesota Vikings.
First headline for me, I'm going to do a baseball headline.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a Royals headline.
Oh!
The Royals are calling up their number 5 prospect, according to MLB Pipeline. Nick Lofton will join the Royals in Kansas City on Friday for their season opener against the Red Sox. Tomorrow is September 1st. That is when rosters expand. It used to be, you may recall, that rosters expanded to 40 players. You could use any player who was on your 40-man roster in a game. Any player on your 40-man roster could be active. So that made for some really long games in the era of no limits on how many batters pitchers had to face before the 3-batter rule. Like Bruce Bochy would use like 12 pitchers a night. It was excruciating. You'd have, lots of pinch runners and what have you. They changed that a couple of years back to where only 28 players can be active at a time. I personally think that's too small because that only gives you 2 extra roster spots.
I agree.
For the month of September. I think that's too few. I think 30 would have been about a fair compromise. But as it stands, it's 28. So the Royals are going to have 2 extra roster spots to work with over the course of September, just like every other team. One of those roster spots is going to Lofton, the 24-year-old former Baylor Bear, who was the 32nd overall pick in the 2020 draft. He's had a solid minor league career. He's OPSing 789 over his 3 seasons of minor league play. This year, over 2 levels, including 6 games rehabbing a knee injury in the complex league and 82 games with AAA Omaha. He's batting .272 with a .353 on base, a .436 slug. Those are his minor league career numbers. This year, he's hitting .280 with a .362 on base, .458 slug, .820 on base plus slugging, 15 home runs. 7 stolen bases this year. He stole 29 the year before, wondering if the knee injury maybe cost him some speed and has slowed down his running game. Very versatile in the field, was drafted as a shortstop, but can play pretty much everywhere. Grades as a plus runner, much more of a contact-oriented hitter, kind of along the same lines as a player like Michael Garcia, Michael Massey, players like that we've seen impact the Royals' big club over the last year and change. Nick Lofton is next. So we will get a look at Nick Lofton. Where he will play is anyone's guess. He has seen some left field and first base playing time recently. Those would appear to be places where the Royals could comfortably slot him in. Like, he's not going to play a lot of shortstop. I don't think he's going to play a lot of third or second either with Garcia and Massey in the lineup, and the Royals want to get a look at those guys. But Nick Lofton getting the call up. If you're still following the Royals this point of the season, number 1, God bless you. Number 2, here's something new to look forward to. Nick Lofton going to get the call.
Yeah, you have at least, for sticking it out this long, gotten the reward of here are some guys who are interesting to watch. Bobby Witt, awesome and interesting. Cole Reagans, awesome and interesting. Nelson Velasquez, interesting. What is he? Is he a major league player? Maybe we'll find out. Nick Lofton, you've heard about him. You remember when he got drafted not all that long ago. Maybe he's something. At the very least, you have something to be interested in at this point, which is, frankly, more than you could have said for the first 5 months of the season, for the most part, outside of Witt and a few weeks of Cole Reagans. I'm excited for it, though. Good for Nick Lofton. Next headline for me, also from the world of baseball. I don't know, and I don't want to be unfair in my judgment of the Royals and how they're run. It doesn't feel always from the baseball side like they are particularly well run, especially compared to teams like, like Tampa, which
the Dodgers,
even teams that don't necessarily win all the time, but they've got
Cleveland.
They've got a good system. They've got good, things are in place to have success. And even if you're down, you likely won't be down for long. Mm-hmm. You have good players. You have a good farm system. Everything is just solid or better.
None of those things you would use, I think, to describe by and large the Kansas City Royals.
Good development, certainly lacking. Well, Royals fans, I will tell you this. You are not the worst of the worst. And frankly, I don't believe there's an argument for it. And that's because one of your own is in a new place of power. That's very vague. Let me tell you about Chris Getz, former Kansas City Royal, former White Sox too, I believe. I believe he did play for the White Sox. Mm-hmm. He is now the general manager. He is the shot caller, the head of baseball operations for the Chicago White Sox. He has been with that franchise in an administrative role, a front office role, from quite some time. And today, it was made official. This has been reported for a while now. It has been rumored for even longer that with Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams fired in Chicago, Jerry Reinsdorf, one of the worst owners in American professional sports, has promoted from within to get Chris Getz into the lead baseball ops chair for the Chicago White Sox. Jerry Reinsdorf had an all-time disastrous press conference and media tour today, where he talked all about, among other things, how terrible of a year this has been for him personally and how hard it's been for the White Sox and yada, yada. And then after this whole spiel, talking about his rich person problems, uttering out, oh, yeah, by the way, someone got shot at our game the other night. Like, oh, yeah, maybe that's kind of important. Maybe you should stop being cheap and should, pay for security. But, among other things, he is the worst. He is awful. And this is an awful baseball move because this is bad process. I will say that because we don't know the result yet. You can have a good result with a bad process. We see that in sports all the time, right? This move is bad process because your team has been run horrendously for years and years, terribly run. You're cheap. You are not good to your fans. You're not always all that good to your players. And now apparently it's not even safe to go to the game. And now you're firing two guys who have been there forever and replacing them with someone who's your hand-picked yes man who has also been there for years to do exactly what they were just doing before. And the reason Reinsdorf gave for why they didn't hire outside the organization, it's easy. Seriously, he said that it was going to be easier to have someone who knows the team and knows the building rather than have to take a year with someone getting acclimated to things. It was easy. And that's why he promoted Chris Getz to GM. So congratulations, Royals. You might not be good. And you might not be run all that well in many ways at all. But you're not as pathetic as the Chicago White Sox and their owner, Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah, they typically, I would say that as a Colorado Rockies fan, I root for the least normal team in Major League Baseball. But the Angels and the White Sox have certainly given them a run for their money in that department this year.
It's just unbelievable, man. I'm not a White Sox fan. I don't dislike the White Sox, but I don't know. I don't know how you can stick around being a fan. I saw a radio host in Chicago who's a huge White Sox fan tweet out, either sell or even move the team. Just put me out of Jerry Reinsdorf misery. That you have people who have supported your team and the only public people supporting the team for decades who are now like, fine, move. Just, I don't want to root for a Jerry Reinsdorf team anymore. That is bleak. Also, yeah, here's the quote, by the way. It's the worst year I've ever suffered through. It was a horrible experience. I feel awful. I know how our fans feel. We're going to put this behind us and go forward and get better, but this has really been a nightmare. And then, when provoked, brought up that someone was shot at his game the other day. Good job, Jerry. And this is the team he cares about. That's what bothers me. I root for the other team he owns that he doesn't care about. I hate you, Jerry Reinsdorf. Hate you. What do you have next for us?
All right. Speaking of stubborn and weirdly run baseball teams, remember the other day when the Angels put all the players that they acquired at the trade deadline essentially on the waiver wire? Yeah, a lot of them got claimed today, and 3 of them went to the exact same team.
Yeah, big day for the state of Ohio.
Lucas Giolito, Matt Moore, and Ronaldo Lopez were claimed off waivers today from the Angels by the Cleveland Guardians. To review, the Guardians were 1 game out of first place at the trade deadline. In response, they sold. They got rid of players. They traded Ahmed Rosario for Noah Syndergaard, who they just released. They traded their best starting pitcher, Aaron Savali, to the Tampa Bay Rays, and they traded their starting first baseman / DH, Josh Bell, to the Miami Marlins. They got rid of guys at the trade deadline when they were 1 game out of first place. Today, they are 5 games out of first place, and they made 3 waiver claims, adding a starting pitcher and 2 relievers. Another very funny note about this transaction is that Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez have been involved now in the same transaction for the 4th time in their careers.
They are destined to do this forever.
They are fated to be together always. They came up in the Washington system. They were both traded to the White Sox together. What was that trade?
That sent Adam Eaton.
It was the Adam Eaton. That's right. It was the Adam Eaton trade.
All time, do we have to play with this player, Adam Eaton? Yeah. Not especially popular with his teammates.
Gave one of the greatest quotes in the history of Major League Baseball, though, when he said the White Sox clubhouse had lost a leader when Adam LaRoche was told to quit bringing his 12-year-old kid around. By the way, I don't know if Drake LaRoche is still playing ball. He was at, what's Cowley? He was at Cowley for a year, but I can't find any evidence that he has continued his baseball career. I have, however, found evidence that he was recently married. So congratulations to Drake.
Congrats to Drake LaRoche. Yes. Wow, he's old enough to be married. Wow.
And Adam Eaton said at 12 years old, he was a leader in the White Sox clubhouse.
It feels like just yesterday that the White Sox were a side, like they're a sideshow now for other reasons. Like Chris Sale was cutting up uniforms in the clubhouse. There are 12-year-olds running around.
What a weird franchise. Anyhow, Giolito and Lopez came up as Nationals prospects, were traded to the White Sox together, then got traded to the Angels together less than a month ago. And then today we're claimed on waivers together, and we'll get to go to Cleveland. At least, it's always nice to know someone when you show up in a new work situation. So
think they carpool? Like first day at the new job, think they've carpooled?
I would hope so.
Also, and not that I know personally, it would be very funny if they hated each other. Like if they really just hated each other's guts and they just could not escape.
God, I can't believe I keep having to play with this guy. This jerk.
Yeah, Lucas.
The other team that was busy today on the waiver wire in Major League Baseball was the Cincinnati Reds. Like you said, big day for Ohio. The Reds claimed outfielder Hunter Renfroe off of waivers from the Angels. And they also claimed outfielder Harrison Bader off of waivers from the Yankees. If you missed that transaction, so did Bader. He learned about it while watching television in the clubhouse yesterday when he found out he was being placed on waivers. The Yankees acquired Bader last year in a trade with the Cardinals. He was really good for them in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And then this year, he's just kind of stunk. He's hit 240, a 643 OPS. Still a terrific defender with good speed and not yet 30 years old. I don't think he's turned 30 yet. That could be wrong. No, just turned 29, in fact, 89 days ago. But now he will play for the Reds. Randall Grichuk was the only player that the Angels placed on waivers to not be claimed. I feel bad for handsome Randy.
Also, not claimed, but Josh Donaldson has been signed by the Brewers. We's going to report to their AAA team in Nashville.
Josh Donaldson, if he does not get another Major League plate appearance this year, which seems possible, will go into the books as having the lowest batting average on balls in play for a single player in a season with more than 100 at-bats in the history of the game.
What's this BABIP?
Oh, you are not ready for what his BABIP is. He had 142 this year, Josh Donaldson.
Not
the
great.
bringer of rain, more like the bringer of recirculated air, because he has struck out 32 times in 120 plate appearances. He does have 10 home runs, which is wild. He has 5 other hits. So his batting average on balls in play is 0.76.
Oh, my God. He's getting a hit on a ball in play 7.6% of the time.
Correct.
Oh, my God. That is brutal. Good luck, Brewers. Hey, bring them up, Brewers. Actually, I don't want to say that because the Brewers are the luckiest team that's ever played Major League Baseball this year. You're going to come up and hit 300 for them for 3 weeks if he plays for them. That does it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Let's get to our first commercial break of this 5 o'clock hour. We'll look ahead to the first Thursday night of the college football season up next on 580 Sports Talk. .34 on 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. He's Dan. Thanks for hanging out with us. No Jake today after the first half hour. That's because he's on his way to Pittsburgh. Well, he's in Pittsburgh right now?
Yeah, he should be there by now.
I would think so. Made the trip down to Southeast Kansas, Crawford County, for some MIAA football tonight. Pre-game coming up in the 6 o'clock hour. Kickoff at 7 o'clock over on our sister station, Country 106.9, as the Ichabods take on the Gorillas. Rivalry game week 1 in the MIAA. Love that to start the season. Big game for both of these teams. Washburn with a win. I know Pitt State's good, and I know Pitt State has a lot of hype this year.
Pitt State is the preseason favorite by both the media and the coaches to win the MIAA. So a win at Carney Smith Stadium tonight would be a massive statement for this young Washburn team.
I just saw on Twitter, Mitch Sherman, who covers Nebraska for The Athletic, tweeted it out. Minnesota posted its availability report, the first one.
Yeah, this is a new thing in the Big Ten this year.
Yes, so every team in the Big Ten must put out an availability report. I imagine there's a somewhat uniform setup for it. But it's got a list of, I believe, 9 players who are out, including a guy named Derek Le Captain, which is French for the captain. And 2 guys who are questionable, which, by the way, includes their best offensive player, Chris Ottman-Bell, which is concerning for Minnesota.
Chris Ottman-Bell is in his 7th year of college football.
Is it that few?
It's his 7th year of college football. No word on whether or not he's Dr. Ottman-Bell yet.
I mean, I feel like you have to be.
A lot of people go to college for 7 years.
They're called doctors. So that is one of our games tonight. Hey, as we whip through these games this evening, let's just start right there. Actual conference game tonight.
Yeah.
Big Ten football, Nebraska, Minnesota. This game is going to be hideous. It really is. The over-under is down to 42.5. Minnesota's favored by 7 in the hook. I think Nebraska is going to play respectable football this year. I do. I don't think they'll be very good, but I think they will play respectable football this year.
They'll be better under Matt Rule. I don't think there's any question.
Rule is kind of a goof. I think that's fair to say.
I think in college football, he's a very serious person. I think in the NFL level, he was not a serious person.
But I think he still brings a much stronger element of adult in the room than Scott Frost, who I'm not going to report on rumors of his behavior around Lincoln, but you can go to any website that covers college football to find plenty of rumors about that.
If I speak, I will get in trouble.
So I will leave that alone, but those rumors are out there. Who you got? 7.5 point favorite for Minnesota. I think this game is going to be gross. I don't think it's going to hit that total. So it's kind of hard to pick a spread that big when you don't think there are going to be many points, but I don't know. I think Nebraska's a ways away from regular competition in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I could see the Huskers covering, but a little bit more experience, I think, on the Minnesota side, particularly on defense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not enthused about Jeff Sims as the Nebraska quarterback. I don't know what he is. Maybe he's really good. Maybe it was Georgia Tech that made Jeff Sims, just being the quarterback there, that made him look like he was not actually good. I'm willing to entertain that possibility, but for now, I don't think he can go on the road and win a game. So it does feel like a slog, like a 20-17 kind of football game.
Yeah.
But I will row the boat with King Weirdo PJ Fleck.
Ski-U-Ma. Or no, Sky-U-Ma. That's what it is. Sky-U-Ma.
Yes. What is that an acronym for?
I don't know.
That was the whole thing this offseason is players were alleging like,
oh, right,
the abusive behavior, like and like everything is an acronym.
I'd forgotten about the acronym.
Family, forget about me. I love you.
I think PJ Fleck is a good coach.
Yeah, the results speak for themselves. Like Minnesota, I don't believe is an easy program to recruit and win at, and he's had success there. Like I think the proof is in the pudding that he is at least a well above replacement level head coach. I just think he would be so off-putting to spend any time around.
Yeah, I would not. Well, also his like weird "please praise me, your chancellor" kind of vibes. Like I would, if I was a recruit, I would not play for him. I get why kids do. Just like I understand why guys go to the slimiest college basketball coaches.
But I also understand why kids transfer.
And I'd be like, oh, God, there are so many of them. KU alone has added 3 transfers from Minnesota in 2 years.
Yeah.
And I know Kai Thomas was a different situation because he's a local kid. And I hope Kai goes crazy. Is he at Akron?
Kent State.
It is Kent State. I couldn't remember where Kai had transferred to. If it is indeed Kent State,
yeah, Kent State. So we can watch him tonight.
I hope he
UCF.
goes. I hope he has 200 yards and 4 touchdowns today against UCF.
I am now genuinely curious what their. I'm sure he can play. What does their depth chart look like? I'm going to pull up their depth chart. They got a brand new coach this year. Their coach Sean Lewis left to be the offensive coordinator for Coach Prime.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like a fast, up-tempo offense.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they'll be under Kenny Burns. He's the new head coach who came from Minnesota. He was running backs coach under PJ Fleck,
where he had coached and recruited
Kai Thomas. Kai Thomas not on the 2 deep, at least not for game 1.
Okay.
That I can see.
Yeah, I haven't dug in recently to what Kai's been up to, but hopefully he'll get on the field sooner rather than later.
I've got a sophomore and a grad transfer at running back, so we'll see.
Yeah, the nice thing is he still has plenty of time to play college football, so that's very exciting for him.
2 plus the COVID year, I believe.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for him. I hope he does see the field.
No, he doesn't have the COVID year. 2020 was his grad year, so he doesn't have the COVID year. Well, no. Yeah, the season after that was the COVID year. So everybody gets that 2020 college football season for free, and that was his freshman season.
Yes, if you played in 2020 for football, you get the COVID year. For basketball, it's 2021. The 2020 and
Thankfully, there will not be a quiz on this later.
Yeah, because
I might be wrong.
Yeah, I'm confusing myself now. All right, well, let's get to that game. Are you on Minnesota, by the way?
Yeah, Minnesota to win.
Yeah, Minnesota for me too.
But I think I will go with the Huskers to cover 7.5.
Can UCF cover 35.5 against a Kent State team with a brand new head coach?
I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring in that game. It could be also some weird weather. You may have heard there's been some weather lately in the state of Florida. Could be some weird weather. Like some of the previews I predicted flat out said there's going to be a lightning delay at some point.
Oh,
that to me would suggest that maybe not so many points in this one, and maybe a lot of ground and pound from Gus Malzahn. They'll win handily, but 35 is a lot of points to cover.
I'm trying to come up with the implied score in my head, and I'm thinking of too many things at once, and I can't do the math in my head right now. UCF is favored by 35.5 points. The total is only 53.5. And if I was betting on this, which I'm definitely not going to, I'd probably take Kent State just because if you're not going to have that many points, it's hard to win by 5 touchdowns. But I don't know.
39-14 now? No, it's 35.
Yeah, you're looking at 42 to
40 now. 42 to 11. That's not enough. 44-8.
Yeah. Oh no, even that's a point short.
53.5.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is. It is a point.
Yeah, I would. If I was betting, I would take Kent State. That's too many points, but I'm not going to touch this one.
Okay, yeah, 45-9. Then something in that
area. Yeah, that's kind of gross. Other notable games tonight. Let's get to the biggest game of the night next. Florida at Utah. This spread has moved again. It was down as low as Utah -4.5. Right now, I'm looking at FanDuel 5.5 is the spread for Utah. That tells me some of the wise guys have jumped in on this right before game time. Utah doesn't have Cam Rising, who is old, and he's also really good, and he's tough, and I love watching him play. So they don't have him. They have Bryson Barnes, who will be in at quarterback, who's had to play mop-up duty a couple times in recent years. He is not so good. Florida is going to play Graham Mertz, and I have seen some people who cover the program or who are just big college football SEC guys who say this might be the least talented Florida team in a decade or more, which would have me concerned if I was the Gators going into a game at Rice-Eccles Stadium in Salt Lake City, where Utah, I believe, has not lost a game at home since 2019. That would have me concerned if I was Florida. I'm going to take Utah straight up, and I am taking Utah. I would take them to cover the spread, I think. I did bet on this game. I bet the under 44.5 points. I think this game is going to be kind of ugly, too.
I like Utah. It is 5.5 at my book of choice, or at least the one that I'm looking at right now. It was down to 4.5.
4.5, yeah.
I really should have bet it then, but I still like it at 5.5. I think Utah's just going to be too physical for Florida, and Florida does not have Anthony Richardson, and Utah beats them last year, if not for that. So I think Utah will be prepared to play without Cam Rising. Like, this isn't new information for them. I mean, the kid tore his ACL. Like, I think that there was a lot of hope that he might be ready for week 1, but I think they've been Bryson Barnes, the backup quarterback, I think is his name.
Yes.
And they've been preparing with him. I don't know that he's any great shakes, but I don't think he'll have to be for Utah to win tonight.
By the way, and I wanted to mention this as well, talking about the lines in this game. The opening line, I believe, was something for the total. The total points expected in this game opened at, where is the number here? No, I can't find it. All right, never mind. But it has dropped a lot as well, down to 44.5. One other game we'll get to real quick here before we get to a commercial break. UConn made a bowl game last year.
Yeah, they did.
They're at home against NC State, who I've told you before, I refuse to bet on a game involving North Carolina State. I will not do it. Dave Doran's teams have burned me one way or the other too many times. They got rid of their quarterback. Devin Leary. I couldn't remember his first name. Devin Leary, not there anymore. He's at Kentucky this year.
But they got Brennan Armstrong out of Virginia,
who started his career looking like he was an NFL player. Last year, he was terrible, but he was also hurt. Also, Tony Elliott is a terrible coach at Virginia. So there's some intrigue there. Connecticut, better. Still not, I would say, good, but better. I know you hate Jim Mora Jr.
I do.
Connecticut going to keep this close?
No.
All right.
I think North Carolina State covers 14.
14.5?
Yes.
Yeah. UConn was a fun story last year.
They were. I still don't think they have ACC caliber athletes.
No, I don't think so either. That's going to be tough for them. College football coming up tonight. Other games that might be of interest to you. Miami oh, no, that's tomorrow. I'm sorry. So we've covered all of the Thursday games.
The Confusion Bowl is tomorrow.
Yes.
That is literally what the game has been called.
All right, my mistake. Yes.
The Confusion Bowl between Miami and Miami.
That is so funny. We will give you our picks for the weekend for college football coming up tomorrow. Jake won't be here, but we'll make sure that we get his picks as well. That's coming up tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk. Right now, we have another break to get to. We've got more of the program coming up after this, though, on 580 WIBW. Folks, I promised you Kansas State football tickets. I told you you're going to get a double dip. And we've got another chance for you. We've got 2 K-State tickets to give away. Saturday's opener, 6 o'clock kickoff at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Again, before I tell you what caller we need, you need to give Dan your full name and your email address. We will send you the tickets, okay? We'll send them to you in a PDF form. You can print them yourself, use them that way. We will send them to you. You don't need to pick them up, so keep that in mind. What caller number should we go for?
Let's go with caller number 5.
Caller number 5, 785-272-9429. Caller number 5, a pair of tickets to K-State season opener on Saturday are yours. Caller number 5, 785-272-9429. Phone lines are lighting up. Glad someone's going to be able to go. Shout out to Joshua, who won our pair earlier. Josh, if you're still listening, we will send you your tickets as soon as the show is done. Same with our winner who is calling in right now. We will find out momentarily who our winner of our second pair of tickets is. We will have tickets to give away on 580 Sports Talk to home games for Kansas State throughout the season. So make sure you are listening, and we will have plenty to give away throughout the course of the year. They are good seats, if I remember. I don't have the tickets in front of me at the moment, but they are indeed good seats. So, again, make sure you are tuned in throughout the season for your chance to win home game tickets for the Kansas State Wildcats. I don't believe, we're talking about the spreads and picks for games earlier. I don't believe we have one yet for Kansas State. There isn't one anywhere for KU either, since they're playing FCS teams. Those usually don't come out at books that do hold those, that do host those bets. Usually don't come out till the day before or even the morning of. So don't be surprised if you're just champing at the bit to bet on K-State. You want to bet on your Cats. Might take a couple of days before you can get a spread for such action. We're a week away from the start of the Chiefs season. The NFL season begins in just 7 days. Oh, we have a winner.
We do. Mike is our winner.
Shout out to Mike.
Congratulations to him. And folks, if you did not win today, we are going to give away more Kansas State tickets throughout this season. So you will have more chances to win.
Yes, we will have them for home games throughout the year. So do not fret. But shout out to Joshua and Mike for winning our tickets today. More chances coming throughout the Kansas State high school, or not high school. I got high school football in the brain because we got our game tomorrow night. I was going to say, though, Chiefs start the season coming up in just 1 week. They play the Lions a week from today. We are both in the camp that we're leaning toward Chris Jones. Probably not going to play at all in the game if he's even reported by then. From a big picture standpoint, final record of the year, if Chris Jones misses 6 games, or you know what, let's say 8. He said he would return by week 8. Do you think that in terms of record that changes anything for the Chiefs? Because as we addressed earlier, and I think you did a really good job of explaining it, even if game to game things might not change that much, on balance for the entire year, he impacts so many things that you're going to run into moments that he could have changed, that he doesn't impact, and then may hurt the Chiefs in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, do I think it hugely affects week 1, for example, against Detroit? No, I think they can beat the Lions without Chris Jones. I think there are divisional games they can win theoretically without Chris Jones. I think there are some games that get harder to win without him, and your margin for error just narrows. And if you narrow that margin for error over the course of 17 weeks in a conference where Cincinnati's going to be really good again, Buffalo should be tough again, I think Baltimore is going to be better. I think that the Chargers, again, they're always next year's champions, but what if this is the year they actually do stay healthy? And I know that's ridiculous. I shouldn't even preposterous. Ha! Yeah, preposterous, the notion. But you don't want to be in a position where a game gets away from you that maybe shouldn't have, because that could be the difference. It's not as though the home field advantage or the bye is decided by 5 games or 10 games. Usually it's decided by 1 or a tiebreaker. And you don't want to be on the wrong side of that if you're the Chiefs, but that's the situation you put yourself in the longer Chris Jones holds out. So, like, on a week-by-week basis, I think the Chiefs can make do without him. But I feel I get a lot less confident, at least a little less confident about them being, because if none of this were going on, I would be chest out, nose to the air. The Chiefs are going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. And I say that less confidently the less Chris Jones plays.
He deserves to get paid. You only get so long to play and make this kind of money, so go make it while you can. But I do think from a football perspective, nobody benefits with him out. Everybody is going to benefit once he gets back and once he gets on the field, which hopefully will be sooner rather than later. We've got one more break to get to, then a final word to wrap up this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Dave Ramsey is pounding on the studio door, so we got to get out of here real quick, though. A final word, Dan.
Shout out to the 92,000 who packed Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, the largest crowd to watch a women's sporting event in the world on Volleyball Day in Nebraska. What a cool spectacle that was. Fun to watch on the Big Ten Network. I checked it out, watched the whole first set. My wife and I sat down to watch it. Really, really neat. It shows you what you can do if you invest in women's sports. Tip of the cap to the Star City, University of Nebraska, everybody involved. It was really cool.
Final word for me is that college football week 1 is here. It has arrived. We've got some great games on the schedule tonight. Washburn is in action tonight. High school football and KU tomorrow. K-State and the rest of the slate on Saturday and the rest of the weekend. One of the best weekends of the year is finally here. And we're excited to talk all about it with you coming up tomorrow on the show. We'll be with you from 2 until 6. We'll talk to Matt Derrick. We will hopefully have a Broncos guest to talk about Denver going into the NFL season. We have Hayden Gillum joining us, the K-State offensive lineman, and a lot more coming up tomorrow as well from 2 to 6. For Jake LeBon, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Thanks for listening to 580 Sports Talk.